President, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Good morning. We're going to get started, and thank you all for being here. But before we begin the public hearing, I'll make the following announcement. Due to the continuing threat to public health from COVID-19, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearing of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, the Inquirer, and the Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearing, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Mr. McDermott, will you please call the roll to take attendance, and members that are in attendance say a couple of words to make sure that your image is displayed on the screen. Mr. McDermott, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bass.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues.
Hold on, somebody needs to mute. There we go. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Brooks.
Good morning, Council President and colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Dom.
Good morning, Council President and colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia. Present.
Morning.
Councilmember Gautier.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues in Philadelphia. Present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Green.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to all the attendees and to the viewing public. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Gim. Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilmember O.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Quinones Sanchez.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Squilla.
Morning, Council President and colleagues. Present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. I'm present.
Good morning.
And Council President Clark.
And good morning to all. We have established a quorum, and we're going to get started. This is the continued public hearing of the Committee at Whole regarding bills number 220-284, 220-285, 220-286, 220-287, 220-288, 220-240, 240, and resolution number 220-300. Mr. McDermott, would you please read the titles of the bills?
Bill number 220284, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2023 to 2028 inclusive. Bill number 220285, an ordinance to adopt a fiscal 2023 capital budget. Bill number 220286, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2023. Bill number 220287, an ordinance amending Chapter 101001 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fees of Commissioners of Records to increase certain fees for the recording of deeds of mortgages and related documents under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220288.
This was yesterday?
Yeah.
And was he shot?
Folks, somebody needs to mute. Please stay on mute if you're not speaking. Sorry, Mr. McDermott.
I'll reread that last bill. Bill number 220287, an ordinance amending Section 101001 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fees of Commissioners of Records to increase certain fees for the recording of deeds and mortgages and related documents under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220288, an ordinance amending Section 191403 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Imposition of Tax by creating a Philadelphia County Demolition Fund to increase and encourage economic development by demolishing blighted properties within the city, imposing a related fee for recorded documents and related items, and making technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 220240, An ordinance substantially increasing the budget and number of areas and neighborhoods around the city served by the Community Life Improvement Program to improve health, safety, and cleanliness of every neighborhood and enhance the quality of life for all residents. And resolution number 220300, resolution providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia, a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2023 through 2027, and incorporating revised changes with respects to fiscal year 2022, which is to be submitted by the mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement authorized by an ordinance of this council approved by the mayor on January 3rd, 1992, by and between the city and the authority.
Thank you, Mr. McDermott. Today, we continue the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider the bills read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal 2023, a capital program, a forward-looking capital program for fiscal 2023 through fiscal year 2028. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this is a public hearing and it is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. So by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this particular purpose. This morning, we will hear testimony from the Department of Commerce, Office of Human Resources, Chief Administrative Officer, and the Office of Innovation and Technology. Mr. McDermott, the first person to testify from the administration is?
Ann Nadal, Director of Commerce.
Good morning.
Morning, Council President.
State your name for the record, and please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Council President Clark and members of City Council. I am Ann Nadal, Director of Commerce. Joining me today are Deputy Directors and Senior Leaders of the Commerce team. I am pleased to provide testimony on the Department of Commerce's fiscal year 2023 operating budget. I will first provide a brief overview of some of the programs that Commerce supported this fiscal year, and then highlight our strategic priorities and investments going forward. In fiscal year 2022, Commerce, in partnership with PIDC, the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity, and other partners, dispersed nearly $34 million in financial relief to more than 2,000 small businesses adversely impacted by COVID-19 and other events. These initiatives include the Restaurant and Gym Relief Program that was funded at $12.1 million, the Pennsylvania COVID-19 Hospitality Industry Recovery Program, known as CHIRP, funded at $17.4 million, the Salon and Barber Emergency Relief Fund, known as SABRE, funded at $750,000, disaster and flood relief grants for businesses impacted by Hurricane Ida at $300,000, and $3 million in hospitality support to Visit Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau to help drive a tourism recovery. Nearly 75% of the businesses awarded these relief dollars were minority, women, and immigrant-owned businesses situated in some of our most impacted neighborhoods. In fiscal year 2023 and beyond, we strive to be the economic catalyst for the City of Philadelphia by creating equitable wealth-building opportunities through strategic investments, resources, and ecosystem partnerships. The department is committed to helping all businesses thrive in Philadelphia by growing quality jobs, building capacity in under-resourced communities, and making it easier to start and run a business in Philadelphia. Going forward, Commerce will focus on the following strategic priorities and investments. First, provide trusted guidance and a simplified process to establish, grow, and operate a business in the city. Drive equitable neighborhood revitalization that contributes to vibrant community commercial corridors. Attract and retain businesses with resources and strategic investments. Connect talent to growth industries and to jobs that pay family-sustaining wages. Strive to build wealth in communities of color through more equitable access to capital and contracting opportunities. And finally, leverage economic research to drive policy and strategy. Council President and members of Council, on behalf of the Commerce Department, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today in support of our FY2023 operating budget. We are eager to partner with each of you to move our city forward as we emerge from the pandemic, and we welcome any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and welcome.
Thank you.
Hope you're enjoying yourself.
Yes.
In the short term. Good. We got a couple of questions before I turn it over to my colleagues. I'm actually going to ask this because Councilwoman Parker is not on the call. I know she would be interested in this one. In your testimony, you highlight the workforce training program, which employs 200 cleaning ambassadors as part of the Taking Care of Business initiative. And I must say it has been extremely successful. It has made a significant difference in our commercial corridors. In particular, I just want to say kudos to Councilwoman Parker for pushing that initiative and getting it funded. But as a part of that, we want to talk about opportunities and pathways for those individuals in moving forward to possible enhancement of the skill sets, the business acumen that they may provide. I actually met a person yesterday at a ceremony that used to be one of the maintenance people at Temple University. And I met the person. I was wondering why was the person at this event for this senior citizens building. They said, "Oh, I now have a company. We have the cleaning contract for this particular building," and that was clearly a situation where that person advanced to another level. What's the strategy, or do we have one yet, for these individuals that are part of our cleaning ambassadors program?
So first, I think I'd like to take this opportunity. We can never thank the people that are involved in that program enough, right? As you said, the impact has just been tremendous. And I think often we don't get the opportunity to say thank you. I know Friday we're having a rally for the cleaning ambassadors to thank them. And I'd like to do it publicly now as well. I'd like to ask Karen Fegley, who has the Taking Care of Business program, which includes the cleaning corridors, in her shop, and she'll be able to give a little more information.
Good morning, everyone. Karen Fegley, Deputy Commerce Director. Thank you for asking about this, Council President, and we do appreciate Council's support to make Taking Care of Business what it is. It really elevated we had an existing corridor cleaning program that was basic. Now it's sort of hitting on all, multiple fronts, and one of them is ensuring that the folks who are employed sort of have further opportunities. There is mandatory training involved for all the participants. We call them corridor ambassadors. And so whether they're employed by the nonprofit community organization or whether they're employed by a private for-profit company that is contracted by the community organization, they all participate. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but a number of them, we have percentages of who's achieved different certificates through that, OSHA certificates, other things that are transferable to other jobs. And we're just continuously trying to raise the bar among our providers regarding their hiring, their onboarding, their supervising. We're also starting to offer supervisory training, recognizing that that's really important on the ground. And just the practices, the management practices, and sharing, that they're all sharing best practices so more experienced groups can share their learnings with the newer ones. For some folks, it is definitely a pathway to something else, and we are looking for those opportunities and connecting with the workforce folks in our office, Heloise Jettison and company, and in the city to look for those opportunities so that we can create more of a direct pathway. We also rely on the community organizations. It's one of the reasons why the community organizations run this program, so that they have that real, they have relationships with these people and can really connect them to other opportunities.
All right. So with respect to the community organizations, and I want to give kudos to them, they do a good job. Probably most of them, this might be their first time in this type of function. And as I said earlier, the situation that I ran into yesterday where that person created a business, are we looking at talking to those community organizations and possibly expanding the role that they currently have in creating businesses and cleaning crews to have janitorial services for office buildings and universities and all the other types of things, because most of this is private work. We want to take them to the next level as possible. And I think that's a way of ensuring that we're going to get local residents, Philadelphia residents from these various communities opportunities. So if you own the business, you go out, you get a contract with a company, with this university, or with the city of Philadelphia, because a significant amount of our cleaning staff are private companies. Are we looking at possibly doing that?
Absolutely open to it. It's a great idea. I don't know that we've had that opportunity yet to promote an individual in the program into being their own business. I do know the business.
No, Karen, excuse me. I'm meaning to cut you off. No, I'm saying promote the nonprofit.
Oh.
Yeah,
to form their own cleaning companies and do more of this.
Exactly.
Again, it's a great idea. I'm open to it. I don't know that any of them have expressed that interest, but we could start talking about it. I do want to stress that one of the outcomes of TCB was providing those for-profit contracts. And so some of the nonprofits do it themselves. Some of them have contracts. And I know they're all local firms. They actually are all minority-owned firms. And in TCB, they're getting $1.74 million in 2021 through contracts for that. So this is for the private firms that already exist in Philly. Now, the idea of a nonprofit forming their own company, that certainly would be we encourage them to, find revenue streams that are different than grants, and that would be a good way to do it. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Self-sufficiency is a good thing.
Yep.
I don't want it to be dependent on what administration is in office, It's like,
yeah.
Can't depend on the government all the time. All right. We actually had the airport on yesterday. So in your budget proposal, you include an increase of $54 million, and a little over half of that increase is attributed to purchase of services, most of which are for aviation department. And interestingly enough, the aviation department is looking to bolt from Commerce per the proposed charter change. Can you detail how the funds will be spent, the additional 54, if at all?
I'm going to ask Keola Harrington to hop on to help respond to that, please. Keola.
Hi, everyone. My name is Keola Harrington, Senior Director of Finance for Commerce. So I just want to point out, because airport currently reports under Commerce, a bulk of that is for airport, but I can go through the numbers that are specifically for Commerce if you want.
Okay.
So,
sure.
So in our Class 100, we're receiving an additional $1.6 million. And so $1.6 million is a combination of additional positions to support just increasing capacity across the department, really to restore positions back to pre-pandemic funding levels, as well as supporting the administration and infrastructure positions being filled. And then we also have $6 million. $6 million is in Class 200, which will support primarily TCB, as well as our quality jobs and job incentive program. And then also we're doing some software to support Permit Wizard, which will make it easier for businesses to communicate with various departments when they want to come to the city and do business with the city. And then we also do have some funding in Class 3 and 400, which is about $36,000. And so that $36,000 will support technology needs for the additional staff that will come on as part of the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. And then we also have some funding in Class 500, but some funding was already existing, so we do $500,000 for CDC grants that we give to the nonprofit organizations. But then also this year we're adding some funding to support OEO's Met Week. So historically, OEO has raised funds to have their annual week to promote minority-owned businesses, but now we're creating a budget line for them to have actual dollars to promote that event.
Okay. All right, we'll pivot back to the airport. I forgot to ask them that question yesterday about the funding. I got one last question before I turn it over to my colleagues. Talking about building out and enhancing a business retention team. I know we have a small group now. And I think that's very important. I know Councilman Green brings this up on the number of hearings we're talking about, marketing the city of Philadelphia. And traditionally, we're marketing people to come see the Liberty Bell and ride the horses and some of these other things that are primarily tourist related. But I can recall that in New York and other locations, they were actually marketing opportunities for light industrial or commercial activities, stepping it aside, marketing this for a good place to do business and jobs. And I've just always felt that we fell short on that. I know I may not be in the market where we are marketing to, because I'm in Philadelphia and we're marketing to people outside, but I've just seen no evidence of that. Can you tell me this business expansion and retention team, what will it do? Because this is so important in the time, this whole issue around the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of companies are making decisions as to whether or not to stay, go, expand. They're moving all over the place, and I just need to feel comfortable that we're in the mix and we're aggressively seeking opportunities for people to come into, the city of Philadelphia to do business, separate and aside from tourism. We have a number of KOZs. We have the Navy Yard. I mean, we have a lot of places where there are all kinds of incentives. So can you kind of talk to us about that?
Sure. I'll just say a few words and then I'll turn it over to Dawn, who's really on the ground every day. Dawn Somerville every day, working with our existing business community as well as expanding that community. I think COVID has certainly highlighted for us the need to first stabilize the companies that are here, stabilize our base, and stop companies from leaving and use every tool that we have at our disposal to do that. And then Dawn can talk about how we are strategically working in sectors that we know have tremendous growth potential, not only for companies, but for our residents who can get jobs in those sectors for careers and long-term job prospects. So I'll turn that over to Dawn.
Good morning, everyone. Dawn Somerville, Deputy Commerce Director. Good morning, Council President Clark. Thank you for the question. So as you stated, the business development team, we are a small team, small but mighty, focused on business attraction and retention efforts. There is a need, as you pointed out, to have a retention team, which is what we're looking to stand up under this year, matter of fact, to have managers that are strategically placed across the city, just as you stated, to talk about our opportunities and to also make sure that we're checking in on businesses that we attract. Our attraction team does a great job of bringing companies in. There's a lot to follow up. We should have checkpoints with those companies within 6 months up to a year once they are on the ground to see how they're making out and making sure that they are also connected in to our chambers or into the community and just to see what's going on. It's amazing some of the conversations that we've had when we've met with employers, how some of them feel that they're not connected to Philadelphia, even after being here for over several years. That's a problem. And for our companies to feel like they're home and that Philadelphia is their home, then we want to make sure that we're having our retention teams scour out to talk about growth, to talk about what new jobs they're bringing on, or what the trajectory of the company, which way they're moving in the market. We're in a very competitive space right now with companies having to make decisions whether or not they're going to remain in the city, whether or not they're doing hybrid, how they're attracting employees to their companies. Right now, as you're hearing the housing, it's a seller's market, it's an employee market. I mean, down to the point that folks are asking to bring their pets to work, and companies are adhering to that. So we have to be proactive in how we're approaching our work for retention for our companies, making sure that we're connecting them, again, to the communities, making sure we're connecting them into folks like yourselves if they need to talk. And that's what we're focused on moving forward. We have some dynamic industries that continue to grow here within life science, biotechnology, but we also have other sectors in entrepreneurship with folks that are growing companies in that space. And we want to make sure that we're supporting everyone all the way around.
Okay. I know I promised that was my last question. This is part B of the question. life sciences, just referenced it. That is an obvious growth industry and probably likely sustainable, high-paying jobs. What type of dedicated workforce or team will we have working on that? And I asked that question. I know what's going on out in West Philadelphia, and I actually had some conversations with some people from Temple University. We've been trying to encourage them to get engaged in that. Do we have a focused team that's not only city employees, but folks from, say, the chambers and PIDCs and all that working on that type of activity? But those are really jobs that between that and some other types of industry, there's really some awesome opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
So, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
So I like to, refer to life science and biotechnology and some of those high impact sectors as career opportunities and not jobs, because there are career paths and career opportunities to grow families and to help build wealth in those areas. Leading the life science on the behalf of the Commerce Department was Sam Woods Thomas, who is now our Senior Director for Business Development. He continues to do that role. We are currently looking to hire a new director for life science. However, we continue to partner with from everyone, the planning department, the chamber, across the board. There are so many different sectors of groups that are working on this. We partner with PIDC, with the Navy Yard. We're talking to Philadelphia Works. Everyone's at the table around the life science piece. To your point, there is a clear path for those who are not or who have not pursued a college degree, a 4-year degree. There's a clear path with a certification. There's a clear path with a 2-year degree for these folks to get trained into opportunities within the manufacturing field for life science. Coming in the door, they can make between $45,000 up to $65,000. We are focused on that trajectory for them, especially for our Philadelphia residents. Some folks are not made to go to college and don't want to go to college, but this is opportunity for them to really have a clear career opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. I've abused my chairmanship pretty much to the limit today, so I will now recognize Councilman Jones. Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, you can never abuse your privilege as the chair. That's why you have that privilege.
Thank you.
Feel free. I want to thank you, Madam Director, for taking on this charge of being our Commerce Director for the City of Philadelphia. But I also want to acknowledge your team. Your team I've seen up close and personal, whether it's on business walks throughout my corridors, from Main Street to Market Street, literally walked these corridors and their understanding of what is needed to keep small businesses alive. I want to thank you guys during the civil unrest that we had. Your team kicked into gear, did alerts to people who were in malls about what was going on, how to prepare, and I think it almost served as an amber alert system that things were going on in neighborhoods. Downtown was not the only place that was ravaged. It was neighborhood businesses that were decimated. And not to mention the pandemic, and I began to think it was almost biblical. I was waiting for then the cicadas came, and I really got scared. But all throughout all of that pressure, they worked with, as a team, PIDC and City Council to give out PPEs, and I am grateful. Couple of things that we are already talked. Yes. You've shared some of your vision with me. A couple of things that I thought about after the meeting and thought that we might be able to add to the discussion is President Clark and I talk about the devastation left behind and that some businesses have not recovered. on these commercial corridors. I'd love to get a better sense of what our vacancy ratios are on those 100 and so commercial corridors in the city of Philadelphia, and what specifically we can do to replace, attract, or expand businesses, what that strategy is. Germantown and Lehigh is not the same still, has not recovered still. Places like 52nd and 52nd Street, 60th Street. I don't know about Shelton Avenue, Wadsworth, up in other areas, but I would like to do a census of who did not return and why. The other thing that I think might be something that you guys could help us to understand is the insurance situation in the city of Philadelphia. We pay too much and get too little in return for small businesses. It's probably true for auto insurance and all, but for small businesses. And between you and the Commerce Department, African American Chamber, Hispanic Chamber, Women's Chamber, to put together a technical assistance response to the fact that many of these businesses were underinsured, took the money and run. And could we work with the insurance people to create a shared risk pool for Philadelphia? And then finally, I got a lot of industrial space, Hunting Park, Parkside, and the paper mill that needs to be studied further in today's times to see how we can put them in a better position to be like the Navy Yard. So with that, share your vision on those topics, please.
Okay. I'm going to ask for the first part that Karen Fegley join me on this one because the commercial corridors report up through her. I believe what we all recognize is that every commercial corridor has been impacted in one way or another, and not in a good way, with the pandemic. And like wanting to retain our major employers and grow that base, we need to have the exact same approach on the commercial corridors. And we can certainly take us, I don't believe that we have a census by commercial corridor yet, but that is something that we can absolutely undertake and would be a valuable data set for all of us to have and to work from and really help us strategize. And Karen, I'll turn it over to you about everything that we're doing to stabilize the neighborhood commercial corridors and attract businesses to them.
And you're right that the vacancy question is a very important one. We have over time relied on the Planning Commission leads sort of a Phyllis Shop survey where they calculate vacancy for every corridor in the city. That can only be done every so often because it's a really big project. In the in-between years, we rely on our corridor managers to give us that data. It has been challenging because of the ups and downs that have been happening on our business corridors. Sometimes it's literally hard to know if a business is really closed or closed temporarily and so forth. So we are collecting that data. We're also and working closely with the community groups to do that. We're bringing on a Vista this summer too, hoping to assign the Vista to help our community groups do some of that census surveying. So open to ideas, Councilman, on sort of best practices there. Our strategy is, on top of continuing sort of what we call our staple programs, which is supporting corridor managers, the clean corridors, storefronts, in-store, that sort of thing. We're really, our strategy is becoming about, wealth building through business ownership and property ownership. And so we have a couple newer initiatives where we're creating loan programs and grant subsidies to help both nonprofits as well as business owners themselves to buy their real estate. We believe that will have a dual benefit of creating wealth for those individuals, but also the local control, sort of like more buy-in and investment on the street that will help in some of the things we've been through recently. We are also, the Neighborhood Preservation Initiative is a great resource for the city, and there's some of those dollars are directed towards commerce. Thank you very much, to support neighborhood businesses, and we are using those in similar ways to expand our in-store program, which is our program for new or expanding businesses to help them with fit-out costs. We're going to be able to do more of those and a higher dollar amount on our corridors that need it the most. Going to support this commercial real estate acquisition loan program by again, not only providing the loan, but by providing grants up to $35,000 to help a business owner with closing costs and that sort of thing. We're doing more of our, what we call our neighborhood economic development grants. These are grants to nonprofits who are developing commercial real estate. That just ensures that property, key properties in our neighborhoods will sort of always be for the benefit of the community. And then the new and pretty exciting initiative we're going to do is building on our Philadelphia Business Lending Network, which is a program we've already established a few years ago that allows a business that's interested in a loan to fill out an intake form, and it gets blasted out to a number of 30 plus lenders in the city. What we're adding on to it with the NPI funds is going to be a new program that provides part of that loan as a grant. So a business owner, a minority, historically disadvantaged business owner who might be undercapitalized, and the lender might be giving them a pretty, not so sure if this is the right loan to make, will now feel more secure making that loan because they know that they can come back to us and get half of it as a grant. So it helps the lender, incentivizes the lender to make the loans they want to do, especially our CDFI partners, but also obviously puts the business borrower in a better position, right? They shouldn't have to borrow all that money up front. They need a little bit of equity in their pockets to make these deals happen. So we're always open to trying new things and other ideas, but that's what we have on the table right now.
So, Mr. President, I'm going to yield, but I just want to reemphasize, I've walked with you guys on Main Street. I've walked with you guys on Market Street, and knowing the difference between the two areas is instinctual, and I'm appreciative. If not for some of the tender love and care, many more businesses, if you didn't package those loans, if you didn't work with L&I to approve those outdoor eateries, many more businesses would have failed. So we in council don't want to be in the business of too much compliment but credit where credit is due, we're going to do that. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President, and good morning, Director Nadeau. Welcome.
Good morning, Councilman.
Thank you. And I just want to echo my colleagues on the small business corridors. It's so important, especially coming out of this pandemic. And what I've seen is a lot of the restaurants have become kind of the anchors in some of these neighborhoods where people go to eat and then they go out and shop. And we need to make sure that not just the restaurants, but all of the businesses are supported, because it's important, and those are neighborhood jobs that are important for the whole city. But I want to talk about also not just the neighborhoods, but the whole city, because I think the whole city benefits in the neighborhood areas and in all areas of the city when we have a thriving economy. Coming out of this pandemic, you probably saw the Pew chart that showed how fragile our economy is. And when our economy takes a hit, our local economy gets hit harder. And when the economy recovers, we seem to lag behind everyone else. And I think the best way to overcome this trend that we've been seeing is growing these good-paying jobs in the city. And I define good-paying jobs of $35,000 to $100,000. And I think there's two ways to do that. One, support the local businesses that are here, that have made a commitment to us, and that are here, for the long term. And two, attracting new businesses. I'm just going to go through some past facts for your benefit. Pew did a report showing coming out of the pandemic for the last few years, our budget shortfall was the second worst in the country. And it was next to Detroit. And nothing against Detroit, but it's not a positive to be next to Detroit at most of the financial metrics. We had a shortfall of 14.7. Detroit was 17. Comparison cities like Baltimore was 5.4. And this is because we rely on wage taxes and business taxes. And then we have other charts that just point to all of the issues the city is struggling with, like the number of small and mid-sized businesses compared to 15 peer cities, We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom there. Then we compare black-owned businesses to 5 or 6 peer cities, and we're at the bottom again. Not just for black-owned businesses, but for even all businesses. And then we look at cities versus suburbs. Employment in the cities versus suburbs. So the suburb of Baltimore versus the city of Baltimore, or D.C. or Washington or wherever. Most cities and suburbs, the percentage of employees in the core cities versus the suburbs are within 1 to 2 points. We're 25% less employment in our city than our suburbs. We're the outlier. Then when we look at the lowest ranking city on average employment per 1,000 residents, just to give you some idea, most people are in over 500. We're at 411 employees per 1,000. Here's the killer for me. This one is I'm obsessed with this one. We grow lower salary jobs. In the last 10 years, from 09 to 18, in the country, jobs that paid less than $35,000, 29% of all jobs paid less than $35,000. In the cities, it was 28%. In Philadelphia, 60.5%, double everybody else. What we're losing out on, Director, is the middle-paying jobs, those good family-sustaining 35 to 100. The average in the U.S. is 58%, and we're at 26. And the average in the cities is 52, and we're at 26. We're half or less of everybody else of the jobs that take people out of poverty. Then you look at the tax rates for businesses, combining the state and local rates of all the top 50 cities. New York gets the award as number 1. They're at 16.1. But we're at 16.09. We're basically the same as New York. That's local and state. The third highest in the United States is Pittsburgh. They're at 9.9. And the fourth highest in the United States are California cities at 8.84, basically half of us. Chicago is at 7. Boston is at 8. They're half of us. Atlanta is 5.75, roughly a third of us. So my point is, I think it's challenging for existing businesses to grow their employment and their companies here with that backdrop, and it's also challenging for us to attract new businesses. In light of that, my question to you, and you may not have the answer yet because you're new at the job, how do we make this economy thrive, not just for big businesses, middle business, but also the small businesses, also the neighborhood businesses that are essential to entrepreneurism and the local neighborhoods that we have to support? What is your suggestions or recommendations? And I realize you're new, so you may not have this fully fleshed out, but give me your thoughts on this.
It is obviously a multi-pronged approach, right? There's not one solution to all of this. It's going to take developing a workforce and having a workforce available for businesses who can pay those higher wage jobs, have a workforce that is ready to be able to be employed. That helps in recruitment and in retention. Obviously, if we are able to do something in conjunction with council and the administration on helping to ease the tax burdens, that is another tool in our kit that we have. We have not been able to make as much advancement as we would have liked. And I believe just the general business retention tools that we have and attraction tools, we need to, I don't want to say throw everything at this, but we need to use absolutely every tool at our disposal to make us a desirable region. And so I'm going to ask both Dawn, who does our business attraction and retention, and then Heloise Jettison to talk a little bit about our initiatives in workforce to really target industries that will lead to high paying and career opportunities for our residents. So Dawn, do you want to start?
Sure. Good morning again, Dawn Somerville, Deputy Commerce Director. Good morning, Councilman Dom. How are you?
Morning. Thank you. Hope you're well.
Thank you again for that question. I have so many thoughts around that, but let me just start here. Over the past calendar year, business development has worked on over 65 projects or companies that we've brought into the market that has yielded us approximately over 4,000 jobs, 4,500 plus jobs just this past year. Those jobs, again, or opportunities are in areas of food industry, manufacturing, life science, biotechnology, as well as last mile distribution. But back to your question, as well as speaking about the low income wages that we have that have been outperforming, so to speak, of the middle income jobs. I first want to say that we shouldn't discount those jobs that are lower wages. For many, they are a stepping stone that have allowed folks to keep their families afloat, even if it meant taking two jobs, right, to fill those various fields. Throughout the pandemic, not everyone has had the luxury to work from home or have their groceries delivered to their front doors. During the pandemic, local supermarket shelves needed to be stocked. Hospitals and care centers needed to be cleaned. And astronomical levels of trash were collected from our homes during the pandemic. Finally, many folks found themselves having to hire caregivers and nannies as they worked from home, right? And with their children being at home as well. I'm in total agreement that Philadelphia should be attracting more middle income opportunities. And the work that Commerce does, both in business development, from our Office of Neighborhood Economic Development and Workforce and OEO, is just only a part of the ecosystem. Other cities have outranked us in this space. We have had conversations with some of our other partners and those peer cities. The same energy that our city has put behind going after what is the Amazon bid should be the same energy that we're putting in place to attract companies to Philadelphia to provide career opportunities for career paths for citizens. And I'm speaking from the element of all of us, public, private sector. And why other cities are so successful is because everyone's at the table. We can't continue to have conversations in silos. And we have conversations that folks are having on Saturdays, and we're having separate conversations when everyone needs to come to the table and figure out what are we targeting? Career, education, and to your point, education attainment in the city. We need to target that as well. We have folks that are not, again, I talked about this, that are not set to do work for college or career. They want to be entrepreneurs. So how do we grow them? How do we grow capacity to grow wealth for entrepreneurship? Ownership equals wealth. So these are the areas that I want to see the same energy that this city as a whole, from legislators like yourselves, from universities to residents, the same energy that we put in for Amazon is the energy that we should be putting in to figure out how we compete with other cities to bring those type of jobs in. I've said it throughout the pandemic. Commerce Department continues to set up to be at the table for these conversations. I've said it time and time again. This is lived experience for many of us. I was once one of those mothers who had one of those jobs. So for us to continue to grow as a city, we have to be rowing in the same direction. Eagles have to be set down from the table, and that's how we move forward. We have opportunities in life science and biotechnology. We have opportunities to grow entrepreneurship. We have opportunities in the tech sector. But if everyone's not rowing in a different direction, we're not going to get there. I've said it before through the pandemic, commerce is open for business. We remain open for business, and we're ready to partner and talk with any and everyone to move the needle. I will move my time over to my deputy, Heloise, for workforce. Thank you.
I think I've used up my time, so I want to be respectful to my colleagues, but I appreciate the answers, and I'll come back in round two. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. You know what, Councilman, I just wanted to add to that. One of the things that we need to look at generally is, I know and people are critical of the city of Philadelphia in terms of not creating jobs at a lower level. But the bottom line is we live in a state that is probably last in terms of job creation. And a lot has to do with the state regulations, the state laws, the inability or unwillingness to give us the level of flexibility. And around taxes, that if we had that flexibility, we can do a lot of different things in the city. Similarly, on crime, the inability or unwillingness to give us flexibility on guns. I mean, there are all these things that in the state of Pennsylvania that have hamstrung us, that have basically limited our ability to grow our city to the next level, because we are a strategically placed city right between New York and Washington, along the I-95 corridor. But if we can get somebody to do an analysis, and Councilman Dom, I know you talk to these folks all the time, we can get Pew and and some of these other, they do all these analysis about, the city. What would happen if we had the flexibility that they may have in New York on the state level? And that might put us in a much better position to do some things locally. Not that they're going to change in the state, but at least we'd have a sense of what real challenges are. But thanks, Councilman.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President, and thank you to the Commerce Department, and welcome to your first set of budget hearings, and to the entire team there. We truly appreciate working with you all. I know we've had several meetings since you've joined the city, and they have been wonderful. But I just wanted to really start by saying thank you to the Commerce Department and your entire team for all the work they have been doing to work with us on workforce development and around nuisance businesses, and really trying to help with businesses on commercial corridors who have an adverse impact because of the nuisance businesses that are popping up on the corridor. But in addition to that, over the last year, we have gone out throughout the city, and I heard my colleague, Councilmember Jones, talk about the tours, and I know Commerce was with us on the North 54th Street corridor, and in the 5th Council District, CP with your office, and also in the 7th Council District, and also in the 6th Council District. And so we've gone throughout the city, and we're going to the 9th Council District with our Majority Leader, Councilmember Parker, very, very soon. And so I start with a thank you for all the work you all have done. You all know that I have a focus on workforce development, and that has been very important to me since my time in council. So I wanted to start there. I wanted to ask about how much money is the workforce development unit proposed to receive in this year's budget, and how you all will prioritize the unit's work as you move into your new role. And then also, I took note of one part of the budget detail that I was reading on page 45 that talked about the loss of over $200,000 in federal grant money for workforce development. And so I just wanted to ask about those particular dollars, what class of funds they would technically be coming from, and how many positions would we lose, if any, without those funds. I was just curious about that federal grant money from page 45. And I'll start there.
Keola, do you want to answer the funding question first?
Hi, I'm Keola Harrington, Senior Director of Finance. So two-part question. So in fiscal year 22, the Workforce Development Unit received 2.9, almost 3 million. And so at that time, we actually received a local grant from Philadelphia Works to cover the salary of the workforce development team. And so what you see now in fiscal year 23 is that we are no longer receiving that grant. And so we reallocated a portion of the salaries for the workforce development staff to cover the work that they're doing. And so they'll have 2.5 million to actually run and operate the workforce development work.
I see. So basically that was sort of the stopgap when the unit was created initially, so that we can maintain a workforce development role sort of in Commerce as we were going through that transition during COVID. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And so thank you very, very much for that response. Also, just wanted to, for the record, note how much the workforce development unit is receiving in this year's budget.
2.5 million.
Okay, and is that for the Class 100 funds for the staffing piece, or is that separate from?
So 2.5 million is in Class 200, and then there will be an additional 400,000 in Class 100 to cover the salaries for the staff.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Excellent. And so I wanted to also circle back to the workforce development work that has been happening. If you could talk about the organizations that have been funded through the work that's been done with Commerce. And Heloise, I thank you for your partnership, because you have just been wonderful as it relates to workforce development.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Good morning. Heloise Jettison, Deputy Commerce Director for Workforce. And I want to also add, thank you, Keola, for breaking down our Class 100 budget, but we will also been able to add 2 employer engagement managers to our team. thank goodness. So we have expanded a bit, and we're able to do even more work in that employer space, as you all were speaking about earlier, as it relates to making those connections with employers to grow all levels of jobs, entry and middle level. And we also will be able to, thankfully, be able to add an additional director in fiscal year 23 because of the budget that we are receiving that fall under the class 100 space that Kayla was just mentioning.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why I bring that up, because I heard what you all were speaking about previously, and you talked about the life sciences positions and the biotech positions and the tech sector positions that we know most of them will not require a college degree, but additional skills certification for individuals to move into those roles. And so I'm really also interested in, and you've answered this partly around the employer engagement managers, but I'm really interested in finding out how you all are working with these employers directly to create pathways into these jobs. Because one thing I continue to hear is that from some of these companies is that, oh, we created an internship program and we have young people from the school district here for internships, and that is wonderful, and I think that's great. But an internship is a one-time opportunity, and it does not necessarily create a pathway to go directly into a family supporting and sustaining career opportunity and not just a job. So how are they making direct pathways from schools into these positions, and sort of what are the requirements around that? And I know we have work to do with the school district on that topic, and I've been working with them over the year, but how are you all going to work with them to do that also?
No problem. So there are two initiatives that we've actually already started working on that speak to that exact issue and growing pathways into our employers. We have the Career Connected Learning Initiative, which we began last year, and that's a multi-pronged approach between the school district, CCP, Commerce, Philadelphia Works, and we have been meeting diligently and working also with our Office of Children and Family to take what we have already and taking it beyond summer and then year-round internships, which is also going to, work experience is also going to be a requirement, as many of us know, starting in 23 for our graduating seniors. But beyond that, that career-connected learning track. So we have been meeting with them. They are developing a guide that we have informed as far as how to help employers understand what it means to have young people have multiple types of experiences with them, and then the bridging from that experience to their schoolwork and then to post high school completion opportunities. At the same time, we have our ecosystem building initiative that we are piecing together now with my team to work with employers and provide those cogent opportunities for relationships with training providers and the schools to inform each end so that employers know, the training providers know, and the school district knows. What do we need to give to our young people as well as adults, right? We work with all ages. And what are we doing to ensure that there's that bridge and there's a direct and better match for the person and the area that they are interested in and can be sustained in?
Okay, well, I heard the bell and I will honor the clock, but I will certainly come back on the next round relative to the nuisance business piece, business attraction and retention, and also the circular economy and diversity in contracting. But thank you all so very, very much for the work that you do, and I look forward to continuing to have this discussion with you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Council President, and good morning, Director Nadel, and welcome to the city. It looks like you're jumping right in, and I hope that you feel like you're settling in well. Before I jump into questions, I want to acknowledge the incredible work of your department under very difficult circumstances, particularly your senior leadership, Deputy Commerce Director Dawn Somerville, Deputy Commerce Director Heloise Jettison, and Deputy Commerce Director Karen Fegley, who have just done a tremendous job stewarding the department and serving our communities. Myself and my office really enjoy partnering with your staff, and we were excited to see the mayor propose a significant funding increase for commerce. I'd like to start my questions on the topic of gun violence. During last year's budget, Council was able to agree on a historic level of funding for violence prevention and intervention initiatives to try to stem the violence that's happening in our communities. As a part of that, Council allocated $5.6 million to the Commerce Department for anti-violence spending. Can you describe how those funds were spent?
Yes, and I'm going to ask Heloise Jettison to jump back on here because she can better explain what happened with part of that money because that predates me. I can say that Commerce's role, in addition to those dollars, Commerce's role in violence prevention has several approaches. One is the making sure that our commercial corridors are clean and safe, both through the business camera program, the BizCam program, through funding some of the public cameras that are in the commercial corridors to be the eyes and ears when police cannot be absolutely everywhere. And obviously, and almost more importantly, workforce development to provide opportunities for folks who want to break the cycle of violence and better themselves and their families through workforce training to connect themselves to family-sustaining wage jobs to help them be productive. And that is what Heloise can talk to about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again. Heloise Jettison, Deputy Commerce Director. So as Director and Director Nadal just mentioned, we're an economic development unit, right? All of us, and we work together. So it's not just us alone. It's how do we create the environment, the neighborhoods, and the opportunities for our residents and for our businesses to make sure that they're able to thrive, and our people know that they have a place to go, a place to work, where they want a job, which we know is something to help them survive. Employment opportunities that get you on that middle level of I can sustain my family, and then finally your career path. So you have those three different areas. So there's a continuum of pre-workforce, direct workforce opportunities, and then beyond, right? So most of the monies for violence prevention flatly flow through the Office of Violence Prevention, who we work very closely with. There is a dotted line position as the Director of Economic Mobility and Workforce that we are in the process of trying to hire. We've had a couple of candidates, but as you all know, sometimes it's challenging in this environment to get folks, timing to get the right person in the seat. And Erica Atwood and I continue to hone for that position to fill. Who will be the one that will lead the major investment on their side of the bringing the Ready Chicago model to Philadelphia? Beyond that, when it comes to us, we are intricately involved, my workforce team, in the Philadelphia Roadmap for Safer Communities. We meet every week. It's a very detailed opportunity for all of us, cross-city departments and external community organizations and other interested individuals in behavioral health and health, that we literally every week come together, tackle the district, the police district that might be reporting for that week, find out what the challenges are, and then we address it. And the following week, we follow up. And this includes for us, depending where the neighborhoods are. Is there an cross-intersection of where the challenges are, and is it near a commercial corridor? Is it near where any of our businesses might be trying to stand up? Or is there growth opportunity? Are there jobs there? That's where we come in and make sure that our resources, our partners, and our direct resources go straight to the right people on the ground, those trusted advisors, to talk to the residents. And then in the meantime, our conduit is to make sure we're working with those businesses to help them grow, sustain, if they're ready to get more support on attracting and retaining and hiring from the neighborhood. That's where our team comes in, providing direct and indirect technical assistance for those businesses.
Thank you for that answer. I do think it's very important, when we're allocating money towards particularly violence prevention, as that's such a high priority, that we're able to talk about where those funds went and what happened. So I thank you for the explanation. I would be interested in seeing an accounting of what we did with that $5.6 million and how it related specifically to the city's violence prevention efforts.
Happy to follow up with some portions I'll let Kayla speak to, but happy to follow up with any more detail that you may need. Kayla?
Yeah, hi, Kayla Harrington, Senior Director of Finance. I do want to just mention, we can provide the accounting detail, but the 5.6 million was a combination of Class 100 as well as Class 200, right? So a portion of the funds, about almost 700,000, we used to bring on 9 additional staff members. And so the staff members were a variety of areas across the department. We increased staff for the workforce development team. So the expansion that Heloise talked about, a portion of the funds came from that. We expanded staff for TCB. We expanded staff for our business services, the people who are on the ground. And so we really did a lot of hiring over the last year. But then also in Class 200, we expanded some of our programs that have been really great, right? So we expanded funding for our security business cameras. We expanded funding for storefront improvements. We created a new program, which Karen Fagley can talk more about, but Boost Your Business, right? Where we're helping folks scale their business and create more jobs in the community. We're also doing more to provide job incentives and provide that job attraction or business attraction to Philadelphia. So it was really just an opportunity to elevate what we were doing and create some new things that all contributed towards violent prevention, public safety, because those issues we recognize and understand that it's not just one department or one team, it's everybody's concern. And so we've really drilled down on making sure our resources told that narrative.
Thank you so much. It sounds like Heloise was talking about Commerce's participation in the city's tactical team meetings. Can you tell me who from Commerce participates in those gun violence tactical meetings?
Absolutely. Myself, I sit on every week from Karen Fegley's shop, Karen Fegley, Nazareth Sabri, and oftentimes there are other colleagues of mine from Nazareth Sabri's unit, but definitely she and I are on there every week.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. The department will be restoring a number of positions to pre-pandemic staffing levels, but I'm concerned to hear that a popular program that created pipelines to middle-income jobs during the pandemic won't be reinstated. So can you or another staff member from the Office of Workforce Development speak about the city as a model employer program? And a few other questions about it, and I would like to hear more about the demographics of the cities that participate in the program, what departments work to employ participants in the program, and what was the 3-year goal of the program. I'm very interested because it seems like it was doing well, and I would like to know what happened with that.
I'll ask Heloise to chime in on that item as well.
Jettison again, Deputy Director for the Commerce Department. So that you're speaking about the city as model employer program that was in effect from about 2019 until 2020 when it had to conclude. It was very successful. We actually exceeded the goals. The original goal was to place 200 individuals. It came through this opportunity to train and place individuals in certain city departments, which included streets and water, and a couple of others. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact detail, and I can give you some more. But the original goal was to place 200 individuals. We exceeded that target, and actually 209 people were placed by the end of fiscal 19, then Q4, and overall, we came out at the very end with 238 individuals. So yes, the opportunity was very effective. And unfortunately, because the original Office of Workforce Development was eliminated due to the pandemic, we had the staffing component, obviously being our own department, to man that program. And the folks that managed it and ran it up through and including the training were all unfortunately laid off. So we had to close out the program. So at this point right now, we are still continuing to think about how do we have those conversations with doing that in a different way with our fellow department in the Office of Human Resources, that we have started to have those conversations. But that's actually why the program does not exist, is because of that, because of the hit that the office took from the pandemic.
And I figured that. And I know that, all city departments are talking about this hiring thing. Everyone is saying it's hard to hire folks, and I was just wondering how much would it cost for you to allocate money to reinstate that program?
So the one of the things that we had a grant that actually covered the training and the parts of the program that we oversaw. So the grant might have been $250,000, but that did not even touch the cost really, and that's without the staff. That's not including the staffing cost because it is a heavy lift. Definitely, it could probably give you some numbers behind that, how much it would cost if we were to do it ourselves. But in general, we were able to work from a grant with all the supplies and materials, the time for training and the locations, and then the staffing. Not cheap, but it's well worth it. But we can get you that data.
Yeah, thank you so much, because I would like to see this program up and going again. I think Councilmember Dime and a few others before me talked about quality work, family sustaining jobs, and these are viable pathways to permanent jobs, for unemployed or underemployed Philadelphia residents. And, if this helps the city fill these roles, I think it would be definitely a program to bring back, especially since the hiring freeze is over. And I was hoping that, will the Commerce Department be hiring back all the staff? And will any of those staff members possibly be able to serve in a role to get something like this going again? Because you said there were additional costs outside of the grant.
So at this point, we do not have the ability to reinstate all of the staff that were there, and the ones that did work have all gotten other jobs. One of which it's in a industry with a partner organization, so we still have the benefit of that person's expertise doing this in a different way. So at this point, we don't have that, and our current employer engagement managers serve a different purpose. But as we work with our Office of Human Resources to think differently of how we can do this and at a scale, at a capacity that we can manage together, they will be a part of that as well.
Thank you so much. And I also want to kind of echo the statements of one of your colleagues mentioned earlier. I actually sent her an email. Now I can't remember her name, but just the importance of, I think, and we had this conversation about entrepreneurship and investing in, folks becoming entrepreneurs, as multiple pathways to recover from this pandemic and to pull our city out of poverty. So I just want to thank you again for the work you guys are doing. And I'll be asking more about this city as a model employer program, because I think of other programs like library and other folks that are also having problems bringing in staff. And this is an excellent way for us to prepare young people for, strong careers in the city. But I want to thank you for the work you're doing. Council President, that ends my questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, everybody. First of all, welcome to our new Commerce Director. Thank you for taking on such an important position. And also thank you to everybody on the Commerce Department team for the hard work that they're doing and trying their best to put us in a position to address a lot of the issues that's already been discussed, and for time purposes, I don't want to repeat them. But I do agree with a lot of the questions that my colleagues have raised. I've crossed off some of my questions. So I'll start with the nightlife economy position. I know that we're struggling with exactly what we're going to call that position, but I'm wondering on the commerce side, if you can give us an update. This was something that came out of the Arts and Culture Task Force recommendations, and I know we're close to actually having someone. Well, I know we have a timeline. If you can talk to us about the timeline for that position first and foremost, and then I can do a deeper dive into a few other questions I have.
Sure. I'm going to ask Dawn Somerville. That position is going to be reporting to her, and she's been leading the charge on filling that position.
Good morning, Dawn Somerville, Deputy Commerce Director. Good morning, Councilman Thomas. How are you?
Good morning, Dawn. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you. So I'm happy to report, the Director of Nighttime Economy, we had a very robust response to the application or the posting that went out. We had over 25 entries. We whittled it down to 15 and then down to a final 6. We have completed the interview process and are now going back in to whittle down even more. So it looks like we're looking at a final 4. Since all the basketball talk earlier, we're at a final 4 to take a look at a director. Very qualified, highly qualified candidates with great vision for the city that would incorporate all into the night economy. They're looking at every aspect, not just the operations of night economy, but those that work during the night economy, the residents, and the impact that it has. So we're taking a broad look across the spectrum from public safety to opportunities to growth. But I'm very happy with the candidates that we've had in this process.
That's great to hear. So, and I don't want to hold you to it, but when do you think you'll have this position filled and the person onboarded? What would be your target date for that?
I want to be ambitious here, but I would like to have a decision made, I would say by mid or to the end of May, and have
Awesome.
that person in-house.
We won't hold you to that, but we appreciate the ambition. Thank you for that, and we look forward to working with the department on that. One of the things that we've been pushing the admin on is a new website, something that puts businesses in a position to be able to easily assess what licenses they need when they're trying to start a business, ways of transparency to let people know when things have expired and things of that capacity, support navigating L&I related issues. And we know that there's been an appetite for it. So I'm wondering, what is the vision for that new website, and where are we in the midst of that process?
So I'm happy to report that we'll be launching in the next couple of months something that we are calling Permit Wizard, which is based on a software program that has been used in other cities. So this has been tested. We are not the guinea pigs for it, which I always worry about when you launch a new website or a program like that. That will be an opportunity or a one-stop shop for licensing. And at this point, it is licensing only, with the hopes, if this works, to move it beyond that. I'll ask Karen Fegley to give you some more details on it, but we are, I believe the contract is literally currently with the law department to be finalized so that we can launch this program. We are hoping for, again, don't hold us to it, just like you're not going to hold on to the nighttime economy, to June or July. We're hoping to have this up and running.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add, Councilman, just that this is a test, that the proposed budget for FY23 includes some additional funding so that Commerce, for the pilot, multiple departments are pitching in and chipping in to cover the cost of the pilot. The FY23 proposed budget includes funding for Commerce to be able to continue to fund this, assuming the pilot is successful. So we're really excited about that, and just continuing sort of, business advocacy and process improvement work that came out of the earlier Regulatory Reform Commission and other efforts, just trying to consolidate that. And I thank you for your, your interest in this topic. I know we're in the process, I believe, of scheduling a meeting so we can really kind of dig down into some things with you and get your support on some efforts. So I look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you. No, we want to continue to work with you. Again, we've talked to other elected officials across the country just to try to figure out best practices as it relates to what did they do to successfully grow the businesses that are already there, as well as attract businesses to their city. I had great talks with folks in Atlanta, as well as folks across the Commonwealth. And my last question for you is this, and this will be a creative one, and then I'll come back for a second round, just because I have a few more technical questions. I listened to a lot of the testimony that has taken place thus far today. One of the concerns that I talked to you about, Director, is the idea that Philadelphia doesn't have that industry, that signature industry outside of healthcare, right? We do great with healthcare. Of course, we do great with education because we have the great institutions here. But unlike other cities where somebody might travel to because they're, an expert in tech and they want to maximize their ability, or maybe they're artists, and they might travel to New York or Hollywood or Atlanta, or if they're into something that's, like I said, tech related, they might go to Silicon Valley or Boston. If you had to identify a direction for Philadelphia to go in, with all the different innovation that's taken place, what could be a signature industry that we could begin to brand Philadelphia as a place where people can maximize their potential?
So the first that comes to my mind, and team, feel free to jump in here, but I think the way to pick those industries is to piggyback on the assets that we have here, right? We're not just going to sprout something that has no connection to the assets that Philadelphia already offers. I believe that the life sciences, and we're getting known for that area. We're not there yet, but I would argue that is sort of our next big area to land, and the related industries that come with it, be it the advanced manufacturing, the logistics. Those all feed off of a big sector like the life sciences. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to keep talking after the bell goes off. So. Dawn, do you have more to add to that?
No, I think that would be one of them. I think that's accurate. I also go back to tech. Where right now we have the most diverse tech hub that I co-chair with Heloise Jettison, as we're looking to grow that sector for startups. I think, again, going back to supporting and looking at entrepreneurship in this city as a way to help people move out of poverty and build their businesses. I think things began, Councilman, to take their own shape. Businesses follow business, sectors follow sectors, and create hubs. And there's opportunity here for the creative economy, for entrepreneurship, and quite frankly, there's an underground economy here in the city that probably needs to come above ground at some point. And I'm not talking about anything illegal, but folks have found a way to make their hobbies into meaningful money makers or opportunities to support their families through the pandemic. So we should make it easy for these folks to want to come above ground, right? And to do this work and to grow their businesses. So I think that's just something that we have to also have a real conversation about as well.
I appreciate the response. I know the bell went off. And I think, and I'm going to come back for a second round more than likely, but I think first, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. I appreciate perspective. I think that my concern is when I think about the industries that you talked about, I agree. And I think that we can have huge success in those industries, but those are industries that we're not doing a good job of preparing the next generation of young people to be able to step into and to be able to prosper. And I think that's my concern with those industries, is that we don't have the proper pipelines in place. And I know that that's not a commerce problem. It's more of a collective problem. But I just wanted to put that out there. And I just wanted to, again, say thank you to the entire Commerce Department, the entire team over there for all the great work you're doing. Thank you, Council President. I'll come back for a second.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I was permanently muted because I keep talking with my mic unmuted. But thank you, Ann. Thank you for being here. Thank your team for all their efforts during these challenging times. The staff has been very responsive and very helpful to our office. And I know this was mentioned earlier. I don't know if Karen Faley touched on it. Somebody was speaking about the TCMP funding for the corridor management. And it seems to be just under $2.8 million this year. And we believe that obviously it's a great program. We know that, having the people engaged in the community, working with the businesses on a daily basis is so important, especially for the businesses who don't know what's available for them. So obviously looking to increase that money. Do you see this as a good program, and do you think it's easy to apply at this point the way it's set up?
I think it's a fantastic program. Could it be better? And are there improvements that we could make? Of course, no program is perfect, and we would never pretend that it is. But I think the impact that we have seen so far certainly leads us to conclude that it is absolutely a wonderful program and has been, I think, very impactful. And I'll let Karen talk a little bit more about the any expansions. But
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Councilman. So I think as you probably understand, and as you've stated, it's really important. One of the first steps to corridor revitalization, sort of recognized nationally, is to have a person whose job it is, right? Who's out there walking the street, being like the mall manager, so to speak, for this outdoor mall. And so we do that through a number of ways. One, we have our Office of Business Services, right? So our folks try to step in communities where there's a lot of commercial density, but there's not like a strong organization on the ground. And so our folks go out there and really spend a lot of time building up. I'd say the first layer is like a business association, which is not something that we're currently set up to really support with funds, with like staff funds. So the next level is, trying to have a CDC, a community organization, and that's where we fund the corridor managers. The corridor management program, as it's currently defined, is done through an RFP. It's CDBG dollars. And I'm going to say it's not, I'll go on record, it's not the easiest program to apply for and to contract with. But we really do, customer service is always top priority at Commerce. So we try to make it as easy as possible to make sure we're getting these resources out there. What complements it really well, and I think has been really important, is the CDC tax credit program and the sister program, the CDC Economic Development Support Program. We are currently funding 47 CDC or CDC-like organizations around the city with those dollars. And those dollars it's for operating costs. So folks, we encourage them to use it for staff, for like a corridor manager type staff, but they can use it as they see fit. I also just want to recognize, while I've got a minute, the next step beyond CDCs is business improvement districts. And you have a number of them in your district. I think there's currently 13 in the city. And that's really great because this is when the community, the property owners in the community are supporting themselves and they're running things and paying for it. It's great when a community can do that, when a neighbor can do that. It's not practical in all neighborhoods because the real estate values just aren't there. So we work with those folks too and provide them some additional assistance because we want to sort of recognize that they're paying they're paying for it themselves. We try to give some wraparound service in those cases.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it because it's hard to apply for anything on Commerce. It's just that sometimes we get some questions and concerns how it could be challenging. And the other issue is, you need a certain density of businesses. So some of our smaller corridors, and especially in our minority communities, there's not as many stores there to really be eligible for it. Is there any consideration of maybe reducing that number to help these folks or no?
Sure. The eligibility is not it's not set in stone. We put the eligibility in place because of limited funds, right? So we know we only have so many dollars. We know it's important to ensure that the corridors that are really, really busy, dense corridors are getting funded. So,
right.
So if there was more resources, we could do more. And again, that's where we try to use those other programs like the Economic Development Support Grant to kind of get to some of those smaller areas that we know aren't going to qualify for corridor management.
Right, because also we want to build those areas up so they become more dense corridors, right? Yep. And it's hard to do that because they struggle to get them, and sometimes we have empty storefronts, and and again, like you said, not everybody could become a bid. But I support it. I actually support more money into this program. I think it's very important to grow it. We know that these people love going to businesses in their own communities, and it's a part of a great community feel. And so you guys have done a great job with that. And even as far as, has there been any change in the Storefront Improvement Program, SIP, or the camera program, as far as any increase in resources for those programs?
Yeah, we're really pleased that in, again, the proposed FY2023 budget, both of those are back to actually beyond a little bit higher than pre-pandemic levels. So we were able to keep Storefront Improvement Program running throughout, and I think it's to really positive sign, applications kept coming in, even during the worst parts of the pandemic. Businesses were submitting applications, which again was sort of heartening for us and as a sign of the economy. So we were able to kind of patch together money to keep that program going throughout. We had to close the camera program for that year. We reopened it again. It's alive and well, and we're approving people as fast as we can. And next year we upped the dollar amounts, I think, a little bit for each. So $700,000 for storefronts, $400,000 for cameras, and we believe that'll satisfy the sort of the demand for the next year.
Yeah, because we see a high demand for that, and especially as you guys are coordinating with some of these store Carter managers, and they're spreading the word more, because that's how we get people to know about these programs. And we don't want to get them to know about them and say we don't have any resources for them now, and be counterproductive. So it's really important, and I just seen the effects that Commerce has had on these Carters. It's been really, really important, and it's been an asset to them. And then the small businesses know, I mean, it's always a challenge with us, because, we have a tax structure that sometimes makes it difficult. And so we're looking to say, all right, if we can, maybe fix some of those things, but also help you become a more profitable business, help you to maybe increase your storefront and have cameras. I think it's so important. I guess that's it for this round for me, but I'll come back in the second round. Thank you for your help.
Thank you, Councilman. We are now going to start, I believe, our second round. Information.
Mr. President?
Yeah, pull it up for me. Yeah, I'm having technology issues over here. First up on the second round. Oh, first round. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker. I'm sorry. My technology is failing me. Sorry, Councilwoman.
No problem, Mr. President. Director Ann Nadeau, hello and welcome. Let me start by saying Celine Wilson, Michelle Price, Tareen Betts, Robert Somerville, Niagara Minius, Maxine Ferguson, Dennis Murphy, Keola Harrington, Yvonne Boyd, Dawn Somerville, Karen Fegley, Anna Irizarry, Jen Rollins, Heloise Jettison, and Gianna Grossman. Thank you, and I apologize in advance for the future and from past times for being an ever-present thorn in your side, but thank you for the diplomacy and the commitment that you have to working with my office in addressing many of the challenges that we have had in trying to address issues overseen by the Commerce Department. So, Director, I want to start, and I know you already noticed that I was giddy when I saw the PHL Taking Care of Business 2020 report. And I want to share with you, and I want to start here. This is on page 4 for the viewing public and for my colleagues. And this is third-party independent verification from Leroy Towns. I was making 19 cents an hour, and now I make $19 an hour. Coming from being incarcerated to being a supervisor, I take nothing for granted. I'm glad they have programs like this, and I hope more people learn and take advantage of this life-changing opportunity. This is a hand out, and this isn't a hand out, it's a hand up. With that being said, Director, I want to ask you for the record today, PHLTCB will, in fact, according to my notes, be flat funded at $7 million for FY2023. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so now I want to ask you a question related to funding, and I want to ensure that due to inflation and rising costs, because the program is flat funded, that it's not going to, in fact, translate in what I will call a cut to the program. And let me give you an example. If inflation is 8%, then an 8% increase in cost would be $560,000. That's more than $500,000. Can you comment on that. The program is being flat funded, but when we look at inflation, we're not going to end up seeing a cut in the program.
I'm going to ask Keola Harrington to join me on this one. I think we have to balance, obviously, the budget realities that we have, or Karen Fegley can help talk about this. Look, we completely understand the value, and everybody has seen the benefit and the outcomes from this program. They're tangible, not only in terms of the cleaner corridors, but in terms of employment for local residents. So obviously this is a large priority for us. But we also have many other priorities that we are trying to balance. So, Karen, do you want to talk a little bit about the plans for this coming year? If we have, no? Okay.
Sure. And I just want to assure you, we are not making any cuts this year, but we have a little bit of cushion built in. I don't want to say a lot of cushion because I know my budget colleagues are on this call, but we have a little bit of cushion built in for rising costs. It is something, it's a really good point though, that we will have to watch that going forward. I do feel like we have a tendency to think something's funded and it's good, but with rising costs, we'll have to make sure that it stays, fully funded as it needs to be. So thanks.
All right, let me just add for the record, and I have shared this, Director Nato, with the administration, and that is level funding doesn't allow any expansion both to new corridors or of existing ones, or take into account an 8% inflation. So let's talk about like 83 corridors cleaned by 39 organizations through partnerships. Very good, but for the record, when this program was rolled out, it was rolled out and it was envisioned, I would say, planned as a $10 million a year program. And although I understand that the funding was secured just before COVID hit, like we didn't even get rolling until October of 2020. But Director Nato, as you just said, the program has proven its worth. We had a problem in this city. How will we rid ourselves of the Philadelphia moniker that people refer to us as Philadelphia, and this idea and concept that we would be able to assist the economic development hubs and veins of our community via our neighborhood commercial corridors and do something basic, right? Connect people in need of opportunity and growth with the problem we had, which was, again, cleaning our city. So we know we're worth it. But my hope is, and we'll continue to have these conversations, that we can get to that $10 million mark. And just a little note for any members of the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce who are listening, Director, and I'm going to ask you and your team to join me in this effort, and that is asking the Chamber to pony up. You know, you say that supporting neighborhood-based commercial corridors is extremely important, and when we rolled out this program, it was with the hope that the private sector would match the city's investment. And, with the commercial back in the day, the lady said, where's the beef? Where's the investment? How do you match us, private sector, with this program? Because they're not just making $15 an hour. They're getting OSHA 10 certification, Safe Serve certification, all, digital literacy. Surprised to hear so many people say this was the first time that I ever even had access to an email address. Through this program, the soft skills that were being provided. And so I hope you will join me, Director Nato, as we move forward to have conversations with the Chamber, all of the chambers, about their investment in this program, because PIDC, they can match any funding to this program, and it can be written off, which is why the program was designed with that element in it. In addition to that, I also want to note the report that you read. It is because we built in qualitative and quantitative analysis of this program so that we could have a third party outside of government measure its effectiveness, so we weren't just throwing good money after bad. And so I hope the private sector will take that into consideration. We knew that the first round would solely be focused on PHL TCB. I'm already queued up for the second round, and I'm going to ask you, Director, and members of your team to really get queued up for public safety and quality of life issues on commercial corridors. Thank you so very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Sorry about the technology issues. We are now prepared to move to our second round, and Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Council President. And in this round, if I could, 30-second answers are perfect for me. I don't need to have any long answers, so we can get through the round. So let me start with we formed a tax commission with 4 council members, myself included, and 3 of my colleagues, and several other people, administration and outside people. And we've been going back and forth, and I want to hear from the Commerce Department what we can do to help the city of Philadelphia grow our economy and bring people back into the neighborhoods and bring people back to the jobs, especially in these office buildings where they're sitting empty. And so the 2 big topics are wage taxes and, I guess, the net income of BERT. And the question is, which one, in your opinions, are more important to bring people back in the city so we get our wage taxes back, and and growing the city? I'd like to just hear your thoughts on those 2 areas.
I would say with your 30-second parameter that both are equally important. And I know that the administration and the city council have been working on these matters, and we hope that if the real estate assessments come back as was presented during the budget hearings originally, if the assessments come back where we think they are, and we have the opportunity to be able to make some cuts, both will be important. Even if they are not as great as we would like, the message that it sends, that we are business friendly, that we are conscious of the impact of the wage tax on our citizens and on the people that work in the city, that goes a long way. So that's where I would.
If you had to pick one, keeping in mind we're faced with wanting suburbanites to come back to the city and work. They're an important part of our economy. 41% of our workforce lives in the suburbs, and understanding the net income is important for the long term. We understand that both are important, but if we can only pick one from the boat, which one do we pick?
This is my personal preference, not the administration's perspective. I would argue the wage tax to get people back into the city because the spend that those people have when they are in the city and the vibrancy that it brings to the city will lead to more successful and established business community. That's just my personal perspective. That is not the administration's perspective. I don't pretend to argue for them. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. By the way, my initial reaction would have been, before the pandemic, the net income of BERT. But because of the pandemic and the importance of us bringing people back in the city to get the wage taxes, I actually agree with you. And even though I understand the problems with the BERT, as we outlined earlier, so I'm in agreement with you on that. One quick question: do we, if our taxes are, second highest in the country, almost similar to New York, can we at least make our service to the businesses easier? Is there any plan to have like a one-stop shop where in commerce you have one person who walks people through from the application to the ribbon cutting? Because even myself, if I were to open a business, I think it's complicated. I wouldn't even know all the steps. Is there someone in the Commerce Department or any of the departments that can be that liaison that gets you from start to finish?
So I would answer that with two questions. The Office of Business Services, which is a more established office than just a person who can walk you around. There's so many people involved. And I'll let Naz Sabri talk about that in a second. That is sort of the place to start, but even that can be complicated. It is a large group. I believe tools like what we talked about earlier with the Permit Wizard that are online, electronic, people can go and look at them themselves, and we can walk people through steps, is definitely a model that we need to be using. And I hope that with the success of the Permit Wizard in the pilot program, that we can then expand that to really use technology to our advantage for just that purpose. But I'll let Naz talk about how we walk people through the entire process.
Good morning, Councilman Dom and everyone. My name is Nazar Sabri. I'm the Senior Director for the Office of Business Services. And so thank you for that question. So the Office of Business Services team, we work with businesses throughout the city to help them navigate city bureaucracy and help them to connect to programs and resources. And a part of that is helping to walk them through A through Z as it relates to starting and operating a business. And so if they don't know where to go to apply for their license, or they don't understand zoning, our team here will help them walk through that. And each of our managers are geographically assigned. So each of the districts have a specific business services manager that they can contact directly to help them work through whatever issues or concerns or questions that they have. So we always say that we are the first point of contact for entrepreneurs. And so as we get that Permit Wizard up to date, and L&I has a very robust new website that they established, we still help them walk through all of that and even help them understand what it is to be in compliance and help them understand what licenses and permits they need to have.
Okay, thank you. I'll yield on this round. I know the bell sounded, so thank you for those answers. I appreciate it. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. I just quickly wanted to circle back to a few other questions I had for the Commerce Department. First, starting with the circular economy. You know that the circular economy provides a lot of opportunity for innovation and for business development, particularly on commercial corridors. And as we're looking to create more of a circular economy here in Philadelphia, how are you all at Commerce engaging in these conversations, and are you connected to the circular economy strategy work that's being done in the Office of Innovation and Technology?
I'm going to let Dawn handle that. I know she's been having conversations and been focused on that sector.
Okay, and also for the Office of Sustainability too. I just wanted to ensure that everybody's sort of working together as we frame out what this will look like in Philadelphia.
Good morning. Oh, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Dawn Somerville, Deputy Commerce Director. Good afternoon, Councilwoman Gilmore. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So, in regards to the circular economy, the Commerce Department, our Senior Manager for Creative Economy, Sophie Hang, has participated in several meetings with Circular Philadelphia around these discussions. There is, and then within this field, there is an interest in the department, particularly in the creative economy. It does remain an interest to us. I know, according to the latest data information that we received from the Department of Community and Economic Development for Philadelphia, there's over 120 plus businesses with revenues of approximately $150 million, with employees of 450 employees, I believe, that are participating within the circular economy. I know that there have been a couple conversations that stalled, but we want to maintain that we stay a part of the conversation and that we stay engaged in this space. But as far as the strategy-wise, that's where we sit at this present moment.
Okay, if you all could just keep me updated on that. I know that we've done a lot of work in that regard, just working with Circular Philadelphia, and we recently had a briefing. Also, just working with sustainability and OIT in general. I just want to ensure that I'm up to date on sort of how the city is moving around the circular economy and helping our businesses that may or may not be focusing, on zero waste activities, particularly those on commercial corridors, how we're helping them as well. I will reserve the balance of my questions so that we can continue with this round. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President, Director Nato. I now want to go um, to talk about the support for Black and brown barbershops and beauty salons. Nazara Sabri was just on, and she made me think about the Vernon Road commercial quarter that she was intimately involved in, where we, selecting the quality of the wood grain going up for the storefront improvements. And unfortunately, we just lost that barbershop there. And it is happening on barbershops and beauty salons across the city. We announced in October of 2021 that 159 hair care businesses were selected to receive a total of $795,000 from Salon and the Barbershop Emergency Relief Program. That was a SABRE program. They were selected from a pool of businesses that already had applied for grants through our COVID-19 Small Business Relief Fund and with the Commonwealth-funded COVID-19 Relief Fund statewide Small Business Assistance Program. They got up to, one-time grant of $5,000. 99% were minority, 60% were woman-owned. Now, this was great, Director, when we look at this, and from what I understand from talking to these barbershop owners, particularly the Black and brown ones, and small neighborhood-based that are not connected to any of the chain barbershops that we are familiar with. I've introduced the resolution supported by the majority of my colleagues, and we're going to be holding a hearing in May. And my hope is that we can make the case that while that one-time funding of $795,000 for those 159 businesses was a good start, that they are definitely in need of support. And just wanted to hear if you had any comments about that issue.
Thank you, Councilwoman Parker, for that question. I will say something very broad, and then I'll let Karen Fegley talk a little bit about the plans. I think we all recognize not only the business impact or that these are businesses, but they are also cornerstones of our communities, right? So it's got an impact broader than just a storefront being closed when barbershops and salons close. And so we understand the importance on commercial corridors and in communities of this particular business sector that has broader impact than maybe your average store. Karen, do you want to talk a little bit about the future of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an active discussion, and I thank you, Councilwoman, for taking taking the lead on this. As you mentioned, the SABRE grant program was an additional relief program beyond sort of our first city wave of city funds, and then the state program. I want to recognize the funding for that actually came through our colleagues at the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity. And so it was a really great partnership with Commerce and Office of CEO and two of our CDFIs vested in and Entrepreneur Works. And then another entity, which is, I believe, sort of developed through the pandemic with a PA Professional Image Alliance. And that's an association of barbershops and hair salons. And the importance of that is this term trusted guidance that we've been using, where you need folks who really know businesses turn to each other for help. They don't always come to, the city. And so having those folks on the ground really be able to spread the word and help people fill out applications is really important.
Karen, when you mention that Image Alliance, that is clearly the organization. I've never seen this constituency as well organized as they are right now. So let me just say that I look forward to talking with you, Karen, Director Nato, along with members of the administration to see how we can move the needle on providing some additional supports for this industry. Is one, particularly for the Black community, where our barbershops and our hair salons, there are not a lot of people who can come in and take that work. Right. And so the idea that they've been closing as quickly as they are, and they haven't survived COVID and the pandemic economic impact as strongly as we would have liked, requires us to think about additional supports. Thank you, Mr. President. And if we have a third round, I will add my name to it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I believe Councilman Jones, did you wish to be recognized?
Prez,
Yeah.
I put in for the second round.
Yeah, that's why I'm calling on you now.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. What I'd like to talk about is your involvement in the micro business. I'm talking about people that probably sold pocketbooks, purses out the back of their truck or jeans, not quite Amway, a little more, but jewelry, things like that. And we are working collaboratively with you guys, and your staff has been amazing again, to identify these individuals that want to come out from under that, you mentioned, underground economy and move into legitimacy, to establish a temporary location within a container village model. And what is that? That is if you would imagine the Christmas village down by City Hall or on your plaza, and if Jerry's Corner had a baby, they would create the container village. And I want to thank in particular all of your team for working with us. We must have interviewed 50 plus businesses, almost in a Shark Tank manner, where we took some people were ready, some people weren't ready. Some people thought they were ready, but when you start talking about filling up an entire container, one of those overseas shipping containers, it's more than a notion. But that kind of innovation that you guys are working with us on, we hope to replicate throughout the city. I was saying the other day that in Councilwoman Bass's district, there's under a underpass where they have the Give Back Day, the Nice Town CDC does that. That would be an excellent location for a container village. Have you given that much thought? I know we're early in the stages of this one, but I would love to see that kind of first rung on the ladder of entrepreneurship developed for small businesses that don't, I always tell people, Sears met Roebuck somewhere. Why couldn't it be here?
Ann, you're muted.
My apologies. You get to start that answer over again. We all recognize the value and the growth potential of the entrepreneur level of businesses, right? And one of the biggest barriers for those businesses to grow and expand and become more widely known is the startup costs, right? And so it's something like the container village that you have piloted and championed is an excellent solution to giving businesses like that a home to get started. And so we would absolutely love to have those conversations with you and be supportive of this initiative, because it is an avenue for small businesses who just don't have the startup capital to get a location. They may have it for the product, but not for the location. And I think that's an invaluable tool that we have and that has been proven just with your pilot program to be successful.
So every workplace has a hustler. And that hustler comes in on payday, and they whip out from their trunk all of these goodies they maybe got from New York and put a markup on. And I've been a supporter of those types of entrepreneurs and their spirit. But if we can cultivate that, I think it allows that hustler mentality that often falls on the wrong side of legality, that they go out and they find illegal drugs or whatever it is that they start to do. But some of those same skill sets, if put in fertile soil, if given a positive direction, they can really find their way into legitimacy. And I just want to thank you guys. I remember Nazara Sabri was the director. She probably doesn't claim this anymore, but she was the director of our small business library. And I want you guys to know back then, those kinds of entrepreneurs came through and really learned how to legitimize themselves, pay taxes, deal with issues of zoning, supply their businesses. And I just want us to continue that type of technical assistance to people. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Parker, did you want to come back for another one?
Yes, Mr. President, but I saw that council member is Damov. I didn't want him to think I was moving in his place, Mr. President.
Councilman Down.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Again, brief answers are great for me so we can move this along. I have 2 or 3 more questions. Basically, this has to do with getting a lot of calls from constituents telling us how complicated it is to get certified as a minority-owned business and then maintaining that certification. And for a lot of these companies, the contracts that they get are directly related to whether a prime contractor can count them towards the city's equal opportunity participation goals. So when it's hard for them to get certified or stay certified, for that matter, they lose out on the work. And the bottom line here is if we're using certification to make sure public dollars are invested more equitably, which we all agree on, we can't be asking the same companies who need this investment the most to jump through all these hoops in order to get it. So how do we streamline and simplify the process for minority-owned business certification? And there's a growing trend, I think, in benefits administration that's trying to use tech to make applying for and receiving benefits as close to automatic as possible for those who qualify. So sometimes it can be as straightforward as getting 2 separated databases to talk to each other. Have we looked at any technology solutions that might streamline this certification process so we can help these businesses?
Thank you for that question, Councilman Dom. And I'm going to, I thought I was the new kid on the block, but we have somebody even newer who's been in the job for 48 hours, and that's Lynn Newsom, our deputy for the Office of Economic Opportunity, who I think is going to hop on here. And Lynn we've been hearing these same stories. So obviously they know how to, we're hearing the same concerns and frustrations. Lynn has some terrific ideas on changing some of the workflow and the processes for that to make it easier for companies to be certified and registered and really start doing business with the city. So Lynn, I'll turn this over to you.
Good morning, all. My name is Lynn Newsom, Deputy Commerce Director for the Office of Economic Opportunity. And I thank you for that question. That's one of the main concerns I have coming into this position, talking about certification. Certification process has been, this way for years. And I think one of the things that I want to tackle is developing new models for the way we do business. And we've had this discussion on Monday when I first took this office. And what we're going to try to do is convene a group of certification specialists from all over the country and talk about certification. One of the main things I find out with certification, even when it was free, so it's not the cost, even when it was free, that people were reluctant to get into that process because of the financial, looking at the books. So we're going to try to find a streamlined process where we can do certification a little quicker and maybe find another way to identify them as business owners without going deeply into their financial records.
Okay. The point is that if we can make this much easier for them through technology, that's the goal. Sounds like you're working on it, so that's great. My second question is, and this is kind of a combination of several questions. Kensington Avenue from Allegheny down to Lehigh, the Northeast, West Philadelphia, every district council. Do we have a business plan for every district council on how to grow the economy within those district councils and how to grow jobs in each individual district for my colleagues or district council members? Like targeted efforts, 10 different business plans, because every section of the city has a different requirement. Everyone needs a different plan. Do we have, and if we don't, we should consider it, do we have a business plan on how to increase job opportunities in every member's district. I'll give you an example, though, and I haven't talked to Councilman O'Neill, but like we have an airport up in the northeast section of the city. We should have a business plan on how do we grow the economy around that airport. What's going to happen in the next 10 years in the northeast? What are we doing out in West Philadelphia or in Lawnside? What are we doing in these neighborhoods? So my question is, do we have a business plan, and can we look forward to maybe accomplishing that goal?
I apologize. I think that would be a goal that we should absolutely work towards, and it would be in conjunction with the district council staff and council people to be able to really capture, as you said, the assets that are in each of the districts and maximize those assets to attract businesses. I don't know if Karen or Dawn have more articulate thoughts than that, but absolutely it would be a great goal and project to undertake. Absolutely. And it would be something that would need to be fluid, right? It's not going to be something that just stands at one point and it sits on a shelf for 10 years. That's not how that would work. So
I can just add, and I'll try to be concise. I would say we don't necessarily, Philly neighborhoods are not necessarily think of themselves by council districts. We would be happy, of course, to work with each council member to do this, but really it's more targeted than that. So we have plans for every commercial corridor. We have plans for industrial areas. We have plans depending on what the assets are in that community. Always, again, it's a live thing that needs to always be like in process. So happy to sort of revisit that with each council member.
I guess my time's up, but like those district council members who have like the largest level of poverty in their areas, what are we specifically doing to change that and help those people get jobs? Anyway, my time's up, but it's something for us to talk about later. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman, actually, that question, I know you posed it to the Commerce Director, but that might be better posed to the council members, the district council members, because I know that I can speak for myself, but I'm assuming most council district members have a plan for the districts that they represent. The question is, will the appropriate resources and the appropriate ability to designate certain areas, like right now as an example, I'll bring one to you. Ever since I've represented the Hunting Park area, folks have wanted me to get the supermarket at 10th and Erie open again. It used to be a Cousins Market, right? And as far as they're concerned, that should be priority number one plan. But the simple reality is, as difficult it is, as much as I'd like that to happen, first of all, you have to have a willing participant. Second of all, they want you to put a bunch of money in the site to accommodate the developer. So there's a lot of things that go along with that. The district council people know their areas better. The question should be, can we have the support of Commerce Department and, more importantly, the support of money that could be available to support these various developments? Because as you know, when people make these business decisions, I'll say this for them, all due respect to us, they're going to go where they can make money. That's just the way they function, right? And if that particular location doesn't make economic sense for them, it doesn't matter. So what we would like to, I speak for myself again, is to be in a position to have more resources for the plan that is developed jointly with Commerce, city planning, the community, the district council person, to go as a part of that. And that would be more helpful. As was said earlier, and I know I'm answering the question for Commerce, but I just want to be fair that they're not saying it, but I know in their mind they said, well, the council people kind of tell us what to do in their districts, right? So I'll say it for them.
it's a partnership.
Yeah. So the reality is that it's it can't all be on them, because we are in it and we are, drivers of that. We have to work together, but having more support would actually be a lot easier for us to develop all those different areas. The global picture, though, bringing in, as you reference frequently, Councilman, the global issue about bringing in more jobs to the city of Philadelphia, puts us in a much better position to position those in those different areas. But, every city, as we said earlier, every area has a particular assets. And, I represent Center City. So it's kind of easy for half of my district, to attract jobs. But in other parts, it's not as easy. So it remains a challenge. But thank you, though, Councilman, because that is a very important issue. We got to figure out how to create opportunities across the city in every district in the city. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Councilman Jones, I'm trying to get back on track on who I'm calling up to speak, because I got a little. Councilman Jones, now my latest iteration of my list has you next. Was you good?
No, I'm fine. I've asked what I need to ask.
Just having technology challenges over here. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Park.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your comments. And Councilmember Dom, thank you as well. We have a 9th councilmatic district neighborhood preservation and economic development plan, and I'll make sure we send it over to you. But the issue is, how do we get the dollars to implement and it wasn't my plan. It took us 2 years to do it, and it came from community-based leaders and block captains throughout the 9th district. How do we implement it and pay for it? So thank you for putting that out there, Councilmember Dom. I want to go back to Councilmember Squilla's comments on the targeted commercial corridor management program. And Deputy Karen Fegley, you pushed the button for me when you talked about bids and the importance of having, as it relates to those commercial corridor managers, it being somebody's job, right, to build relationships and organize. If there is one, not a successful business association, because you took it back to where it really starts. Right there, organizing public safety campaigns, and that is Director Nato, actually how a PHLTCB was built. I was in my office and I kept saying, the people don't drop trash less in Center City than they do in our neighborhoods. And then I saw the ambassadors out with their jackets and hats, and they were cleaning. I said, no, the difference is versus our neighborhoods, that in Center City, it is somebody's job to pick up the trash constantly, and our neighborhoods deserve that same kind of treatment. And so with that being said, I want to echo Councilmember Squilla's comments about the importance of that targeted corridor management programs, because not everyone, thank you, Karen, for saying this. I hate saying it. Not all commercial corridors are created equal, and that everyone is not successful enough to establish a business improvement district. And just because I'm not as wealthy doesn't mean I don't deserve those kind of services. And so I want us to think about that program in conjunction with something that I hope you are familiar with, and let me know if you are. It's something called a Livable Communities campaign that has a goal of trying to increase funding for this program by 1.21 to 2 from that $2 million up to about $4 million. And this would allow more organizations to participate and increase funding, not a lot, but just by a little bit for the participants already in that program. And wanted to know if you could comment on that briefly for me, because I want to get one more in before we finish.
Karen, do you want to take that?
The increasing of the funding.
Sounds good.
I wish so listen, I just, again, I want to echo, put that on the books. That's extremely important, because if it's not somebody's job to organize, our neighborhoods get left behind. So Director Nato, I know, again, a lot of demands. We all can spend money. I can spend your entire budget in the district, right? But if you would just take that into consideration as you are developing your priorities. Yes. The final question that I wanted you to tell me about, and that is relative to the CDC tax credit program. You mentioned it, Karen, but again, this Livable Communities campaign, is there any thought to expanding this program? Because I think now, to help me, Karen, if I'm wrong, My last data says it's about 40 organizations across the district. I think PACDCs, we work with them along with the Design Collaborative. I'm biased because I've seen their work on Vernon Road and in other portions of the district. This is the best program for all of the CDCs who have managed to get into it. How do we expand it?
Well, what we did, actually, what council did is expanded it a couple years ago with a sort of, I can't think of the right word, but we created you charged that the program would expand unless Commerce created a new grant program, which we've done. And so the city continues to fund this extra grant program, which is really great because, the way the CDC tax credit program works, it relies on the CDC to find a business partner. And that can be tricky, and sometimes the business partner, something happens to the business, so for whatever reason they lose their partner and then they're out of luck. So by having like this sister program, we call it a sister program of the grant program, it allows us to make direct grants to organizations. And I honestly feel like we are funding all of the CDCs in the city that do economic development work by these two programs right now. Now,
Cameron,
could they all use more money? Of course.
Right. Cameron, if you could just technically check into that for me so that I could give that answer, because that's powerful. If every organization, every community development corporation in the city operating in neighborhoods across the city are already participants, that's a hell of a stat to be able to have on the record. And those that don't have CDCs, if they're getting the grants, that's pretty powerful. So if you could get that information to me, that would be great. And if we learn that is not the fact, we will continue trying to push the needle to get some more dollars. And I'm glad you didn't say either or, because that bothers me too. We put those who have just a little bit against the have-nots. And I hate that false narrative. Right. We need the grant program along with the CDC program so we can take advantage of both avenues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I believe we have one more question, and then we do have 3 more departments. So we're going to ask members if they have any additional inquiries, that either do callbacks or forward it via email or letter. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom. Councilman Dom, you had some additional questions?
One last quick question. Thank you, Council President.
Well,
as we move forward, Director Nadol, with supporting some of our greatest needs in the Kensington area, and Kensington, really is top of mind for me right now because of what's going on there. How is the Commerce Department working with my colleagues, Councilmember Sanchez and Councilmember Squilla, in helping targeting activities to bring back Kensington Avenue, to bring back stores? I drove through there again last night around 10 o'clock, and it is a disaster. Even McPherson Square had 2 or 3 fires going outside with people all over the street, and all these stores are shut down. What are we doing to try to help that community and support my colleagues?
So and Karen can piggyback on this, but I can talk about that corridor. We have spent more resources there cleaning, if I am correct, Karen, than we do in almost any other corridor. And as well, we have been working with the local CDC, the New Kensington CDC, to help stabilize the neighborhood by giving them some grants to take control of some properties so that we don't have speculators coming in and then just sitting on the properties and the storefronts remain vacant. We just last week, I believe it was just last week, we awarded some grants to New Kensington to be able to make those investments and hopefully turn those into productive properties. Karen, do you want to add more?
Only to just, reiterate what both of you are saying. The Commerce coordinates with MDO and the city's opioid response unit, but it is limited what we can do for the businesses while the situation is what it is out there. We have this corridor manager role we've been talking about. We have one at K&A. It's really important. The guy does a great job. He works for Impact Services, and he's really out there trying his best. But the way you deliver service to those businesses in that area, it's just, you're limited. You can't help them, in the way you can in other areas while we have this issue we're dealing with. So it's the cleaning, it's the proper control of the properties. We're trying to look at the future and make sure that the folks that live in that community and the organizations that are dedicated to that community are going to have some control over that real estate. And we're working closely with them to follow their lead.
Okay, I just wanted to call attention on it because
Yep.
it needs help, and it's really a disgrace to the city what's going on there. So anyway, thank you for all your efforts. Thank you for today, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. And Director Nadal and team, thank you all so much for the work you do. We know you have had the very challenging last couple of years, and you all stood up and you were up to the task. I mean, this has been more than notion, but now it's time for us to take it to the next level and get us back to where we need to be and surpass that. So thank you all so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Director Nadal, any questions that were asked that we could not answer today, you weren't in a position to answer today, could you please forward that to us as soon as possible?
Yes, absolutely.
So in the event that we need callbacks to have more dialogue around those issues.
Absolutely.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Next up, the next person to testify, Mr. McDermott, is
Michael Zaccagni, Director of Human Resources.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, got a couple of quick ones I have for you. In your testimony, you highlight a mobile application and testing lab that will be stood up at the end of the fiscal year, where staff will recruit candidates for city jobs and neighborhoods to reach a diverse population. And that sounds like a very good thing. So can you provide me with more information about this program and how the neighborhoods will be selected and what types of jobs will actually be available, if you can, at this point in time?
Yes, actually, it's not a mobile app. Mike Zaccagni, Director of Human Resources. It's going to be actually a mobile vehicle. It's going to be a physical vehicle that we're going to probably have about 6 to 7 workstations in it. So we thought that it would be great, and this is being funded through a grant through the CAO, and we thought this would be a really good idea. Actually, Janine Labletta, our deputy for hiring services, her team came up with this idea, and they thought it would be a great idea to be able to get a presence out in the neighborhoods, because we're still wrestling with, as we all know, the digital divide doesn't exist primarily for smartphones, but it does as you go down the food chain of technology. So we want to be able to get out there, partner with libraries, community libraries, and also the community groups that are out there. So we intend to use this around as many jobs as we can. So as we go through our normal job announcement process, we will be scheduling meetings, scheduling site visits, scheduling events so that we can generate that type of interest around it. And because it came from Ms. Labletta's unit, I'm going to ask her if she wanted to add anything to that, if you don't mind. Janine?
Hi, good afternoon, Council. Yes, Janine Labletta, Deputy for Hiring Services. We've identified some target zip codes based on the highest poverty rates and lowest representation among our existing city workforce. So that's how the zip codes were decided, but we're happy to visit other zip codes for special events to promote those job opportunities as well.
Okay, well, that's a good idea, and thank you for coming up with this idea. It's much needed. It's a little bit of old school. You take the opportunity to the people as opposed to always trying to get the people to the opportunity, and that in my mind, that's always a good thing. Let me ask you a question as it relates to this particular program. And as you were listening to the testimony earlier, a question came up about, these different council members, and particularly district council members, about developing plans for their neighborhoods and this, the whole process about the involvement of the district council person. Is there a plan to involve the district council person in the process of notifying and participating in this initiative in these various neighborhoods? Unfortunately, too frequently, we kind of find out actually sometimes after the event has happened, and somebody asked one of us, how come you weren't at this event? We had a couple of in recent issues, similar incidents recently that, events happen and we got calls during the actual event wanting to know why we hadn't notified the people about it, blah, 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 you know. How will you all work with the council members as it relates to these sites and these events? Because we actually can be helpful. Some people don't.
And I'll pass this off to Janine in a second, but we do try to work with council. We do try to reach out. Obviously, there's probably some miscommunications that go on. But Janine, do you want to talk a little bit about how we do try to loop in council?
Yes, I think we definitely have room for improvement there, and we welcome whatever those best practices are to communicate with you all. Our hiring manager team, who came up with the idea for the mobile unit, also recommended that because our main partner right now is the free library, so we want to give some credit and recognition and thanks for all their time and support of this effort. So right now we're attached to the brick and mortar libraries in those areas, but our goal, and we've been developing that, our partnerships with community organizations and with all of you to be present at other events outside of the library walls. So our plan would be we can initiate those conversations with the council members in those target districts, and then hear, you know, what else in the non-target districts we need to be doing as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a simple matter of a notification. Gives us enough time to enhance the event. We do have a network where we can actually notify people of activities, particularly positive activities. So we can only improve it based on what we do. So the sooner the better that you guys can plug us into the rollout of this will be very helpful to us.
So just to add, Council President, as with all vehicles, anybody who's bought a vehicle lately, it's probably not going to be for a little while. So I don't want to get expectations up there too high. We've met with Fleet, we've got the process moving, but they do anticipate delays with the supply chain.
Yeah, now I've heard about that. I'm not in the market for a car anytime soon, but I've been hearing about how challenging it is to buy cars now. This is Cagney. Police recruitment. I'm sure you thought that would come up. What's your role, your department's role, as it relates to police recruitment?
So we actually have very small support of that. Police have their own recruitment office. We do try to support them wherever we can with that process. We do talk to them. We do meet with them. But right now, at least, they actually have probably more recruiting staff than we do in OHR. So they really take the lead with that type of recruitment for that. Now, we will press information out to local communities and so forth when we do an announcement, but they take the brunt of that and they take the major load of that on themselves.
Is there any other department that does it outside of the OHR?
Well, one thing I would like to mention is in this year's budget, we finally got approval for some funding. So we're going to be staffing a small recruitment unit in OHR so that we're going to be able to do more from a central standpoint. There are a couple departments that do recruitment outside. I know water department used to have some resources dedicated to it. Airport used to have some resources. It tends to be those departments that are a little bit more resource rich than we are from that standpoint. But we're really excited about the fact that we've got approved for several positions to do this type of work.
When you say resource rich, what does that mean?
Resource rich.
Yeah, I know. What do you mean by that?
I mean that departments, I was with Streets for 27 years. So because we had a $150 million budget, if we needed to find some money someplace, we sometimes could move things around for being able to resource that. Our budget is $6.7 million. So we really have to rely on building capacity to do this type of work. But like I said, I think we're going to be able to do a lot more in the next year when we get some of those resources on board.
Okay. So going back to the police recruitment, they have their own department. And, you know, there's this conversation, you were on a couple of the team calls that we had referencing this particular issue. And I actually didn't know that you had limited, almost virtually none, no involvement in that, and they have their own department. I'm not going to ask you to critique their department. But I am going to ask you, particularly given the fact that you're talking about something I think is very creative today, that's having this mobile application process. And it's not clear to me that other departments, and I hate to keep picking on the police, but that is the subject of the day, whether or not they do something similar to that. And if this whole process can be enhanced, if they take creative ideas such as you're referencing today in the police department and other departments where we're trying to get the level of diversity, the level of city residents involved and engaged in this process, that having you all a little more involved in this process actually may help us be in a position to recruit city residents and residents that reflect the demographics of the city of Philadelphia. So, and I'm not going to put you. I know you think I'm going down this path. I'm not going to put you in the middle of this little debate between us and the police.
But we do partner with them. I don't want to make it seem like we don't. And Janine can speak a little bit more to that. They've done some creative things. They've partnered with, for example, a Rex department and trying to get people prepared for the physical capacities examinations. They're trying to do some things around the reading test, which is a major hurdle for us. But I do understand the other piece, and we'd love to continue that partnership to see what else we can do and also support, especially we can get some more resources of them being able to get the candidates that they need in a timely fashion. Janine, did you have anything to add with?
Yes, I would just mention that we are looking to build out our support of their efforts with the community-based recruitment, and they are looking at zip codes to build presence to recruit. We also feature police officer recruit with our talent partners like Community College or Philadelphia School District, and we'll have a virtual hot job session. But some of our partners like CareerLink and others, when we get there, we actually see that the recruitment unit of police has already shared recruitment materials. But we continue to align those particular zip code recruitment efforts with them as we move forward with the mobile unit.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, and I know other members want to be watching this. This is a very significant issue, and having 2,500 people on the application list, and I can't. Nowhere in the world I'm not going to take advantage of getting this one in. 2,500 inquiries and people expressing an interest in being police officers, and we're not in a position to get classes is beyond me. So I will be watching and encouraging you all's participation in recruitment, given some of the creative things. I actually don't ever recall any relationship to the Department of Recreation with the police recruitment. It's the first I'm hearing of this. I know that they're proposing to do a number of things as it relates to enhancing the recruitment process, but nothing that's happened in the past fiscal years. So I'm good to hear that you believe that they have actually done something with the Department of Rec. We'll check that. Okay, well, thank you. That concludes my questions. Appreciate that. So round one, chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Zaccagni. Are you related to Ann Zaccagni?
Yes. Anybody with the name Zaccagni, I'm related to.
Okay. I worked with Ann.
Not many of them.
I worked with her. My questions are similar to the president's. First and foremost, are we experiencing any pushback from the whole resign experience we went through during the pandemic? Not take this job and shove it kind of thing, as it relates to finding people who may not want to be employed.
It's funny. I sat on a panel last week with the state about this same situation. Everybody's experiencing some issues around this. We shared some information last week with PICA, which we probably did a report. We were looking at the same data about how it is impacting us. What was interesting is we looked at this 18 months after the pandemic started, and we didn't see a lot of impact except in maybe one department. Then when we looked at it again, everything had changed. So it really changed quickly for us from that standpoint. But most of the delta, most of the change for us, most of the people, the departments that have lost people over the last 2 years, 4 departments sort of are generating most of that. And 2 of them are independent offices. The DA and actually First Judicial is not really even an independent office. The other departments that we've had some issues with include police. And when I say issues, they're just having struggles. Issues, prisons. I saw Fleet high on the list. Their numbers aren't high, but their percentage was high. So we are looking at that. We've looked at what the resignation has been for each department. We looked at what drop has been, people retiring, both on drop and not on drop. And we've also looked at projecting outward. So I can't go through all that information at once, but what we do there is Janine's team meets with departments on a biannual basis to go through a workforce planning process. So we share that data, we look at that data, we try to get an assessment of where that's going. So yes, we are seeing some of that.
So in the case of the prisons, we're finding it hard to maintain, similar to police, recruit, list the names, hold those names, and then we wind up losing those names at a point. Are we making adjustments to recruit and keep in that pipeline of folk? And how do we adjust salaries of what comparable worth might be in the private sector?
So I'll let Janine talk about the salary piece of it. I'll give just a quick overview. On trying to engage with candidates, we do try that. As long as you're having some engagement, you may keep them basically on the hook that they're still interested. I know police has experienced some of that, not just this year, but over the years with candidates for some reason after 2 or 3 months, when we contact them, they're not any longer interested in the position. Some of the anecdotal feedback we've received on that was they've rethought whether or not they passed a drug test. They've rethought whether or not they passed a background check. Or that they've rethought taking the job because now it's been 2 or 3 months. So most applicants go through that lengthy process with not just public employment, but also private employment. So one of the things that we hope to do with the additional staff that we get is do a better job with engagement of candidates and trying to keep them interested and trying to get information out to them so they don't sit there waiting for when are we going to get called, because as you know, our eligible list can last for 2 years. Police officers, not a case like that, nor is prison correctional officers. We pretty much run through those lists and exhaust those lists completely. We do look at salary. I'm not saying that we may put ourselves against private sector. We do look at salary, though, across the board, across the industry and in the public sector. And I'll ask Janine to talk a little bit more about that. Janine?
Yes. So we look at our starting salary mainly for those positions, council member, because of it's an entry-level opportunity. So we do gauge our starting salary against other governments, particularly governments of our comparable size and major metropolitan areas. And then we're also looking now, for example, a correctional officer at ranges. How much can they earn beyond once they become, a beyond correctional officer in the academy or police recruit in the academy? And if that too is marketable and what we're offering long term over their career.
So I would say that starting salary is a inducement for someone to take a job, but I think we are comparable, if not superior in a lot of ways, with our benefits package and our retirement package. How do we market that? And do we do bonuses for signing in certain hard to recruit professions?
So I'll talk to the bonus piece and I'll let Janine talk to our total compensation package because they've looked at that and they've kind of got numbers on that. And we do try to promote that because we have an excellent benefit package. Even though we have sort of an old-fashioned leave package, we do provide a lot of leave time for people. But from the standpoint of the hiring bonus, it's something that we're looking at now. I've talked to some other jurisdictions, and some jurisdictions are jumping with their feet. Some other jurisdictions are being very cautious about it because they're not sure they're seeing a lot of the benefits of it. And we also have to be conscious not only of recruiting people in, but then the retention part. So this can get very expensive very quickly, that if we look at, and I'll just use correctional officers for an example, or even police officers. If we give a hiring bonus to a police officer, we have to stagger it in such a way where we're going to keep them for some time. But then other police officers, if we're experiencing retention issue, may also look at that and say, obviously, why are we not getting something too? So we want to be cautious of creating this sort of two-tier system. And unfortunately, you've heard Commerce talk, and I'm sure Revenue have talked about this. I like to say we're like a Fortune 100 company. We have a $5 billion revenue source. But when we talk about some of the resources that were available, we can't compete with certain areas. We really have to be conscious of the cost right now, especially with how the pandemic has impacted businesses, as we just talked about. I spent 3 years in revenue, so this is why I'm talking a little bit about this. We just really have to be conscious of the cost of those things.
My final point, and because I heard it in my good ear that was happening, but have we had the fleet department in yesterday, and one of the shining examples of school to paycheck recruiting. They go right out of some of the CTE schools to get some of their mechanics. Randolph Skills Center is one. I was wondering if we could do more of that, particularly around our hard to reach positions, particularly in the skills trades. Have we done that?
I'm going to let Janine talk a little bit about this, because they've been working with the CTE programs throughout the year, and we partner with other council people on this. Janine?
Yes, we meet twice a year with the Philadelphia School District Office of Career Readiness to time these announcements. We also anticipate eligibility for their senior graduates with the timing of the exam or job posting. So we are working to close that partnership, make it even closer. We've also reviewed requirements to allow the completion of the CTE program to meet the requirements for our trades helper. We call it our entry level to the skilled trades journey level.
So we're filling our skilled trade positions well, or we need work? And that's my final word.
Our entry level, our lists are shorter than 2 years ago, post-pandemic. But right now, CTE are about, I guess, 40 to 50% of our eligible candidates. We want to increase that rate. And they're about 30% of our hires from those lists. There's other Philadelphia school districts that are not CTE programs as well.
But we still have to make our trades hiring more robust, too. It is a challenge. It's been a challenge since I started with the city, and that's a long time ago.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Council President. And let me just start. Mike Zakagny, Valerie Hosendorf, Marsha Green Jones, Janine Labletta, and Sheila Pate with saying thank you. As chair of City Council's Committee on Labor and Civil Service, I communicate with OHR and Civil Service Commission quite often, and just thank you all for being responsive to my concerns. Let me go and just start with Council President Clark and Council Member Whip Jones where they left off. Because I talked about this on the first day of our budget hearings, and this was in relationship to our Philadelphia Neighborhood Safety and Community Policing Plan, calling for 300 more police officers to do community policing, beat officers and bike patrols in neighborhoods across the city from a preventive perspective, not just responding to crime. And so during that time, I stated that we'll never be able to have true community policing unless we figure out how to better recruit and retain police officers. And so everybody's already talked about sort of this race against time. Councilmember Jones talked about corrections is also in the same position to deal with people who are retiring or resigning at the same time that we're dealing with the number of vacancies. And so for me, I'm ultimately concerned about the city's ability to remain a competitive employer, right, in this post-COVID world. I know I'm going to sound a little older now, but we have an aging workforce, and then many younger workers are, or they seem to be less interested in doing what was the standard practice in the past. What was it? Take a job working in government, which is a lower paying job, in exchange for more long-term economic security, right? With a pension and health care. Listen, with the gig economy, what they can learn, what they can earn online based on the number of clicks and just move the mobility now of 401ks being portable. Folks are no longer as attracted, it seems, to that. And with that being said, I want to know, how much are we spending on advertising and marketing city jobs to potential candidates, and also what the recruitment and hiring process looks and feels like for these candidates. Like, I know you'll say, Sherelle, it's different depending on the position, depending on the department, but how long does it typically take, and how many steps does a candidate go through? And I've got to add this, and I'm going to listen to your response. In the midst of doing that, how are we ensuring that we're recruiting candidates that reflect Philadelphia, right? To ensure that the city workforce across all levels reflects the diversity of our city. I know I asked you 3 questions there, and I'm going to listen for the response.
I'm going to ask Janine to talk about the process real quickly, and then I'll talk about some of the other pieces, both with the advertising and also the reflection of the city as a whole.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. So we post the job for about 2 weeks, and then there's an appeal process where candidates can send us additional information, amend their application, provide licenses or other things we need to consider their eligibility. So that whole process, and to establish an eligible list on average right now, is about 40 days. So that's how long it takes us from the opening, closing, review of applications, and administering the exam to get the list ready for departments to hire.
Janine, when we compare ourselves to other cities of a similar size, is that 40-day span that you gave me, is that like the range?
It is competitive. I don't know the exact range. We can get that. We have looked at that. Some of our lists, I will mention, are under 30 days, but that's our overall average for the 380-some lists that we're establishing per year.
I would like to just ask for the record, Mr. Zaccagni and Janine, if you could provide that information to the president's office, that would be really helpful, so Philadelphia can compare how our recruitment process, the timeliness of it, like how long it is compared to other cities. That would be extremely helpful. And Mike Zaccagni, I know you are going to answer for us now, so the diversity and inclusion piece. And I want you to, if you can, speak about how the elimination of the rule of 2 will help in increasing the diversity of our city's workforce as it relates to entry level and then promotions to upper management. So can you sort of talk about that? And we requested that the city, thanks to our communication with our represented employees, that the city now report on an annual basis its findings, so that we can figure out whether or not this elimination of this rule is doing exactly what we intended to be. And a special thank you to DC 33 and its leadership for making sure that we did such.
Yes, and we're very conscious of that, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. And also thank you for your leadership with the whole charter change. And this is something that I did not think I'd see in my tenure. So we're very excited about this. But we also know that there's a lot of responsibility here, that we work and we try to get this right. So we've looked at some of the data, and we had shared some of this before, where if we're able to dig down deeper into the eligible list, we're going to get a more diverse group of candidates, both from the standpoint of race and also gender. So we're looking forward to being able to give departments not only the ability to reach a broader group of candidates, but also, and Janine has said this very well, and Val Hosendorf, is to engage more people in the selection process. So we're looking forward to that. And we will also be, as you said, looking at what's the results coming up. So we don't have a lot of capacity from a standpoint of analysis, but we will be looking at that on a regular basis. And as the resolution requested, that we will be reporting that out on an annual basis.
Let me just quickly interject here, Mr. Zakagny, and say, one, I want to join Council President Clark and Councilmember Jones in saying thank you so very much for the innovative thinking that went into this idea of a mobile recruitment unit. Councilmember Jones, I'm telling my age. Do you remember when we used to have the mobile police units? That when we had a hot drug corner, you know, they would go, this is excellent. And we shouldn't, I'm happy to hear you say, because when you just mentioned library, although that may be a formal relationship, I can think of every rec center, family fun night, movie nights that we're having, all of these events taking place. If we had it now, you would be pre-scheduled, you know, a year in advance, just with district council members and even at-large members telling you about events that they wanted to get you lined up to attend, so that it's not just one department either, right? Just police or just corrections, but the idea that it's OHR. So when the council president says, and I didn't know, and Prez, I have to agree with you, I didn't know until the day that the police department and OHR, I thank you, Mike, for sort of acknowledging the whole physical exam, the reading exam, and sort of that you do talk, but I thought you all were a little bit more engaged in that recruitment process than you are. So I was a little shocked in that response. But the idea that any job, any employment opportunity available in the city of Philadelphia will be accessible via that mobile unit. I don't know about you, but Mr. President, I think somebody's going to be advocating for more than one mobile unit. I don't know if you're thinking about one, but if we can do what you just said with 7 workstations in a bus, that is powerful. And let me end on this. I was impressed by Fleet when I listened to them. The president, you know, he's a car guy. He was talking about the kids building cars yesterday. In my mind, all I could think about is, what if every school in the school district of Philadelphia had an extreme, not just the CTE schools, because there's so many that don't have formal CTE programs, but what if employment with the city of Philadelphia for a range of careers available, they knew that it was a direct pipeline and there was some sort of consistent training, very much like Fleet described. And if we did that for police, oh, well, I don't know, and corrections, I don't know what will happen. Thank you, Mr. President. If we get a second round, sir, and if we have to forego it, that's fine. I'll put those questions in writing. But thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Council Lady. Appreciate it. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President. Good to see you, Mrs. Zakagny and Janine Labletta, and wonderful to work with you all throughout the year on all the initiatives that we have been working on together. Particularly wanted to thank you all for aligning a number of the job opportunities in the city to graduates of CTE programs. I think that has been exceedingly helpful, and I was really happy to join you for the latest recruitment event you had with the School District of Philadelphia. And so I'm actually going to start with a question that relates to a question that was posed earlier by one of my colleagues relative to the idea that I've offered to the School District of Philadelphia around creating a police science CTE program. That information and letter was sent to the district last year. We know that it takes at least 2 to 3 years for a new CTE program to start because of the research that must be done, identifying the specific school, going through the approval through the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And I've talked to Governor Wolf about this particular program specifically. But I wanted to get your opinion for the record on the need for us to create a police science CTE program to help as a feeder for our young people in Philadelphia to positions not only as police officers, but some of the other technical positions within the police department.
I think that would be a great idea. I think we would have to pair that with some type of bridge position, only because there would be a delay between when the candidate graduates from high school and when they would actually be eligible to become a police officer. Something that we've kicked around with the police department about having something like this. They brought up, I think Boston has a similar program where they have this cadet program. But I think anything that we can do to build these more seamless transitions, especially for students coming out of high school, is really important. But again, for that to really work, because I would be concerned with somebody graduating from high school and then having to wait 2 years until they actually qualify for police officer recruit. So having
Agreed.
that could bridge that gap would be important.
And so what I'd like to do as a part of this process, and this was included in the plan that has been offered by our majority leader around the community policing plan, I really want to figure out how we can work with you all to come up with that bridge position. This has come up before for the students that go through even the Police Explorers program, right? Because they'll go through the Police Explorers program, you age out of the program. Once you age out of the program, even though you will have the point preference to apply to the police department, you still don't have the age. And so I think if this is something we are serious about working towards, that we need to create a bridge position for young people who are graduating from high school from a CTE program, and or for the young people that are going through the Police Explorers program. And so that is something that we want to work with you all on as a part of this budget process and ensure that that effort can be funded and resourced so that we can get that up and running over the next couple of months. I'm going to now go to the topic of workforce recruitment and retention. Again, you all know we've been working very closely throughout the year. My team has reviewed all of the job specs that your office has posted online, over 900 positions, and we found that over 60 positions have required or preferred skills that align with the experience of a recent graduate of a career and technical education program. Almost all of these positions are represented by DC 33, meaning they have comprehensive benefits packages and the support provided by the union. The average salary for the positions are about $40,000, and again, that would be entry level, which is significantly above the average annual salary of someone making a minimum wage in Pennsylvania. And we recognize that unemployment is strongly correlated with gun violence in our city and the challenges that we continue to face. And so we know we have to create these strong pipelines, and you all know that this is something we've been working on. So how do you think we can better attract young people who complete career and technical education programs to apply for these particular positions, the 60 positions, and help them to see long-term careers with the city?
So one of the things that I think we need to do is more around engagement. I know Janine's team meets on a somewhat regular basis with the school district. We try to make sure that we're aligned with when we announce positions to when those youths are graduating or leaving the school district. But if we're able to just have more contact, I think, with the school district, we were stressed with that because we just didn't have the capacity. As we build out our recruitment unit, I think we'll be able to make those connections more. I think we're going to be on social media more from the standpoint of getting our profile out there. We hope that one of these positions will manage that on an ongoing basis. So not only are we doing the old school with the mobile lab, driving around the city, but we're also engaging in leveraging the technology that's out there that many students are using. So we're really trying to build those connections. And I'll ask Janine if she wanted to add anything else to that piece.
Yes, I think we need to get into the schools. We'll be at MassBomb tomorrow, so whether there's an open announcement or not, exposing the students to the wide variety, we agree, of opportunities. We know students want room for growth and they want the opportunity to make an impact. So our marketing materials brand those pillars for them, as well as all of the wonderful benefits and rewards we offer, but also helping them apply. That has been our model, having the computers available to go through and apply in that moment if the job is open, and if not, connecting them to our job notification system so they can be notified when it is open to apply.
No, and you're right. The career exposure is very, very important, particularly starting in the middle years, and then helping them with the applications when they're in high school, particularly for the seniors and those who are ready to enter the workforce. I will pose this question to the school district, obviously, and we recognize that they will be in a leadership transition, and I will continue to work with the district on the CTE issue, but I really believe that the school district has to do a better job of aligning the CTE programs to the opportunities that are in our labor market forecast. And, I continue to work with them on this issue, which is why we are working towards the establishment of the police science CTE program, because we don't have one in Philadelphia at all. And this is something that, we could easily do with just, a little hard work and elbow grease. And so I just wanted to also ask you about the marketing budget for the recruitment and the advertising, specifically for the School District of Philadelphia. And I know we'll be at Frankfurt soon with Representative Joe Hohenstein for another recruitment around CTE, but I wanted to ask about the marketing. I will have to come back on the second round because I have a number of questions for your office because of the work we do. And that's my last question for this round.
Okay, just to mention about the budget, we really don't have an advertising budget per se. We do a lot with boots on the street. We do have some resources because obviously we partner closely with CAO and the HR&T unit. We fund out of that unit our LinkedIn seat, our recruiter seat out of that unit. We have some other connections out of that group from the standpoint of some social media, but we're doing a lot of this where it's people meeting people or reaching out to people on social media.
Got it. Okay, I'll come back on the second round. I heard the bell. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Council President, and good afternoon, and thank you, Mrs. Acagny, for all you're doing and your team. And I first want to really thank you for the quick work of reevaluating how veterans' points were being applied to the fire department civil service test. We had a constituent reach out to our office. We reached out to your office, and the issue got resolved quickly and professionally. And if all of government worked that way, it would be amazing. So thank you so much for your work on that. And then I want to pick up from my colleague, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, and my other colleagues spoke about on the recruitment aspect. And just speaking, is it a possibility when our students turn 17 or 18 to have that gap to get to the police department? I think it's at 22. Could we hire them to do administrative jobs in the police department? Could we hire them to answer the phone calls where we need operators that we have a shortage? Could we find other jobs within our government that could accommodate them? Could they do internships, for example, at the FBI and ATF and Attorney General's office and U.S. Attorney's office, where they could actually learn all about law enforcement? It would be tremendous for them to learn that. And my concern is that when we had a Deputy Attorney General at our staffing hearing 3 weeks ago, and what he said to us was 80% of the police force that they have surveyed 100% of this force they surveyed, 80% said they would not recommend becoming a police officer to their children, to their friends or family. 80% don't recommend what they are doing today. That to me was like a real wake-up call. And it's a wake-up call that not just Philadelphia, but the state of Pennsylvania, and I talked to Governor Wolf about it, and the whole country, we need to really revisit how we treat police officers, the benefits of being a police officer. We need more positive marketing around that. Maybe we should do, as my colleague, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson mentioned, some sort of marketing, social media or advertising, taking 10 Philadelphia residents who are police officers and talking about why they're police officers and the benefits. But we need to change this because we're going to have a shortage, regardless of the rules, of people who want to become public service police officers and protect cities throughout the country. And so I know you don't have a marketing budget, but I will say that the social media is a big piece of it. And maybe we should give you a marketing budget because we need to market. Any company spends a fortune on recruiting people. We spend very little. So it's just something, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I'd like to bring that up to you.
So I think they're good ideas. We've talked about those bridge positions with police. Actually, they brought that up. We're still working with them on that. We've looked at a number of different possible functions that students or graduating students could work at. We haven't really tagged that down yet. As for getting out into social media, some of the things that you mentioned, Councilman, we're going to try to do with getting testimonials online, with having the face of our employees out there. When we did a partnership with the Department of Rec a few years ago, when Christine Darenick was here on the Recreation Leader Trainee, we did a lot of that. It wasn't some social media, we were getting that out there, but we even went to the bus shelters and had things placed on the bus shelters and so forth, just so people could see, hey, here's a rec leader, this is what they look like, this is why it's important. And I do think that one thing that we have going for us, and I know a couple council people have mentioned this, is we really have a job that I think can attract people who want to give back. And I think that's one of the things that you're seeing here. We saw it a little bit after 9/11, but it was more focused because of the tragedy that occurred there. Because the pandemic has been so widespread, you have a lot of people not only leaving the workforce because they don't like their jobs, they're looking for a better position, but also because they're reevaluating whether or not they're getting value out of the work that they're doing. And I think that's where government can really try to advertise to, try to market to say, yes, you're not just here for a job, you're here to have an impact on people's lives.
Okay. I just think right now, and I'm being realistic, when I sound like an old man. When I was growing up, my two best friends from kindergarten to 6th grade were police officers, and you looked up to them and you respected them. I just don't know if the kids in school today have that same kind of respect for police officers because of what's been going on in our country. So I think it's something we need to rebuild. Otherwise, we're going to have a shortage across the board. And I think we should allocate more dollars into the marketing, social media, and so forth. And if you come to us with a request, I'd be supportive of it because we need to do this. So there's a labor shortage across the country. And if we don't focus on that, we're going to have this shortage continue. Well, what are we down right now? 480 vacant police officers, and we have almost 1,000 on desk duty or out sick. We only have, 6,400 roughly authorized. So there's a clear shortage right now. You don't see police officers on the street that much. There's a shortage. So whatever we can do to advance that, I think I would be supportive of. And we thank you for all you've been doing. Thank you to your team. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up, I believe we have Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President. And I won't belabor, but I do have a number of questions because this is an area that I'm very interested in. So, Mrs. Cagney, I wanted to circle back. You know that my first bill in City Council, after, a very robust engagement process and, through a lot of work, would provide a 5-point preference to graduates of career and technical education programs for 3 years after their graduation from high school. And so how do you think this could help us create a strong pipeline for recent graduates into the city and provide them with family supporting and sustaining work, recognizing that most of them would be eligible for entry-level positions because they, wouldn't have much work experience?
I think anything we can do to help students move into city workforce is beneficial. The one thing I will add, and we've had discussions on this one, is I think that engagement process, because, and I'll ask Janine, with our trades positions, we go through those lists pretty quickly. If you get on a list, you're going to get hired. Wherever you wind up on that list, so if you're number 1 or number 10, you're going to get hired just because we have such a dire needs for that. I think that the resources I think the most important piece is what you had mentioned before, engaging them not only when they're getting ready to graduate, but throughout their process through, say, a CTE program, so that they understand that this is a possibility, that we're in there so that they're comfortable with our hiring process, so that they're comfortable with working for the city, so that they understand what it means to work for the city and the benefits that you can get from it, the security, and also the promotional opportunities. So we promote everybody from within. There's a lot of great things that exist about working for the city. And I think if we can engage students there, that we're going to get them interested, and maybe we get to a point then, council member, where we have more people than we need, but we don't right now. We hire just about everybody that we need off of those lists. Janine, am I missing anything on that piece?
That's correct, yes. I would just add, too, we want to make sure that they're successful. So what does our instrument look like, our assessment, if it is competitive, as it correlates to their curriculum? And I know there have been conversations between our operating departments, facilitated through you or other council members around that process to make sure they're successful, because no additional points are awarded unless you've passed the assessment, or if we need to rethink that assessment, as well as educating them around being responsive to our emails for interviews. Are they prepared for the interview process when paired with other candidates? Those kinds of longer term structural supports as well.
Great. Okay, that's good to hear. And I know, like you said, we've been working together very closely throughout the year, and I wanted to just get some of this on the record for this process. How have you all continued to align all of the job requirements and the job specs with the CTE programs that are currently available in the district? And I say currently available because I know you all have to work with the new superintendent, Mr. Watlington, around the work that he wants to do as it relates to CTE programs, and we'll have to work on, building that relationship with the district as they transition. So how are you all continuing to align these job requirements and job specs with the CTE programs that are currently available in the district?
We've aligned quite a few. We've worked on a lot of different specifications. I'll ask Janine to go into some of the details on that.
Sure. I think right now we have programs aligned with obviously the skilled trades, but we also, one of the most recent ones is something you've just spoken to. It's the biotechnology program, and we're actually trying to get that paired with police for fingerprint identification. So that would be a nice career path that's not directly leading to policing, but exposing them to the law enforcement industry. So that has not been announced yet, Councilmember, but we have revised that job description, and that completion of the program works. And our hiring manager is working with police and the CTE schools to make sure that they're aware when that opportunity opens.
Okay, for the record, though, the two biotech schools, is that Roxborough and what's the second school?
Dobbins.
Roxborough and Dobbins. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And so last year you stated that 32% of your hires were school district of Philadelphia students, but your goal is to exceed 50%. What is the percentage currently?
It's still around 30% on average. So it varies by list, but we're still at that same mark.
Got it. Okay. And then lastly, I know you all, I think in this proposed budget, you're receiving additional dollars to expand your marketing for the city positions. Is that correct? Is this in the current for recruitment?
Getting actual positions. We're getting 4 additional positions, and I think that's going to help us also engage the students as we just discussed.
Okay. So I just want to ensure, as you roll this out and the program with the mobile unit, and I'll say units, what metrics will you be using to determine the success of the expanded marketing campaign and the work you all are seeking to do? Like, how are you measuring the success of the initiatives that you all are working on?
So one of the things that we're looking at broadly is the diversity of our new hires, and we can share some information with council as opposed to me going into it and taking time up. But over the last couple of years, we've seen an uptick in new hires. When we look at the profile overall of positions or of the city, a lot of that is because we have a lot of long-term employees. So we're really focused on people coming in the door. Are they meeting what our goals are? Janine's team looks at, and we got to look at some of our own internal systems because they can be a bit challenging for us. And I don't mean one Philly. This is our people admin system, our applicant tracking system. So we need to look at that. They keep track of what's coming in. So we would be looking at how many engagements are we doing? Are those engagements turning into applications for the city? Are those applications for the city actually turning into hires? Looking at that funnel throughout the organization. So I again, a lot of this, the linchpin, at least from my perspective, is that engagement at the beginning, trying to get more and more students interested in positions, and then actually going through the application process. Once we know those people are coming in, we can look at that and see whether or not that's also translating into jobs, because the ultimate goal here is to have you get those jobs and get those opportunities.
Sure. Okay, so I'll ask that you could provide us that information via the chair and just keep us updated on the progress, okay, moving forward. My very last question, and it's just a few, and I want to try to get it in, is if you could all provide detail regarding every preference that is currently available to a qualified applicant for a city job. How often do qualified applicants utilize these preferences to gain employment with the city? What is the average number of additional points a qualified applicant receives when they are utilizing a preference? And which preference is used the most in gaining city employment?
We can get that information.
Okay, if you could provide that information to the chair so that it can be shared with all of my colleagues, that would be exceedingly helpful. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker. You're on mute, Councilwoman.
To Mike and thank you, Mr. President. To Mike and Janine, I want you to know that Council President Clark, Member Jones, Gilmore Richardson, and my colleagues, they know I am a fan of what you will often hear me refer to as standard operating procedures. I don't care if it is who is receiving Philadelphia Activities Funds, groups that we're giving gun violence prevention dollars to on the ground, how you get access to that information, hotlines, just a one-stop shop where people don't have to press one and hold or try to get access on a computer. So I'm going to ask for you to not answer me now, but provide this information to the president and to me as chair of Council's Committee on Labor and Civil Service on this process. And that is the process that occurs when an employee brings forward an internal complaint about discrimination. How do those complaints actually make it to you? How do they get investigated? And then how do they get resolved? On average, I would say and how long does it take you to resolve internal complaints specifically about discrimination? And I want to give you this hypothetical. After my communication with some recent employees, let's say my office is the office that brought forward an internal complaint about discrimination in my role as chair of Labor and Civil Service. Do you have a standard protocol in place for communicating back to the person who made the complaint or the entity that first brought the complaint forward? Letting them know, one, that you're working on it, how long it will take possibly, and then just saying, look, Sherelle Parker, Chair of Labor and Civil Service, the complaint is resolved. Not that because I know sometimes because of collective bargaining and privacy, you can't communicate to us specifics, but just letting us know that that kind of issue is resolved is important, because now my team, they get a chance to close the file, right? And they're able to say to me, Sherelle, they came to us with this complaint. We sent it over to OHR. It was investigated. They know the response, so you know it's done, Mr. President, because that would make my supermarket visits, my relish visits, dry cleaners visits a whole lot better, because I can say, let me check with the team and I'll let you know when that was taken care of. You don't have to answer me now, Janine and Mike, but get that process back, because all council members will be able to benefit from that information.
Do just want to clarify that at the department level, usually Human Resource Office will investigate something at a department level, but the actual unit that's responsible for oversight of all that sits in the Department of Labor, not in the Office of Human Resources. It's the Employee Relations Unit. So over in Monica Marchetti Brock's group, they actually work with departments if they need assistance on doing an investigation. So like with the hiring system, it's bifurcated. You've got an investigation that will go on at a department level, but you have the ERU unit that manages that. So it's not actually out of our house here.
I just want to make sure that I have this right for the record. Obviously, if it was something in council, for example, we have a HR department within city council, right? And obviously it would be investigated departmentally. We got that. I'm talking about when it is over a respective department and we're saying we're not satisfied or the person is not satisfied with the response. You're telling me it is not our Office of Human Relations who addresses the issue, or Human Resources. It's actually our Department of Labor. Because guess what? We have gotten some and I'm being diplomatic, Mr. President, but we've gotten some conflicting responses about responsibility in that area. And so we can talk offline about that, Mike, but we need to get some clarity. And then if it's a one-page fact sheet that can be distributed to everybody so that they know what the process is, that would be real clear about who's responsible for what.
And this is helpful. We're actually looking in that now because we have several different groups that do people practices. And we just started yesterday getting a team together to sort of say we need to have better communications as to what's going on, not only internally among ourselves, but externally to the people that are accessing resources. So we're actually just started that because we have seen this come up before, that there's some confusion as to HR here. So we are trying to clarify. Yeah, the ERU unit went over to the Mayor's Office of Labor Relations at the beginning around the beginning of this administration. It used to sit in OHR, but it's shortly after the administration, it's been in a different group.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mike, because there are some Philadelphia city employees who are watching this right now, and they're saying, Councilwoman Parker, thank you for getting on the record that we're not crazy, okay, about in terms of who, the workflow and a response flow, and them not knowing who's responsible for getting back to them. So thank you all so very much for your response, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I got one last question. Exempt employees in the city of Philadelphia, I think we have, about 2,000 or so?
It depends on how you look at that number. There's a lot of exempt employees that are with independent offices and so forth, but the ones that we traditionally look at within the administration around 22.
Count all of them, independent offices also.
Probably, don't quote me on this, probably closer to 4,000 or maybe higher than that. Janine, would you know off the top of your head? Anybody else? Sheila?
I think it's Marcia. I think that's about right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia.
And what's the relationship between OHR and exempt employees? I know you focus on, recruiting for civil service employees. Do you all recruit for exempt employees, like say an independent office needed to have some positions filled? How does that work?
The independent offices normally handle that themselves, though some independent offices also have civil service, the sheriff's office, for example, and we work with them there. HR&T that sits in CAO but is aligned with us, Deputy Valerie Hosendorf sort of leads that group now. They assist departments with their recruitment of exempt positions from the standpoint of looking at strategies. We have a recruitment platform called Smart Recruiters that actually ports this out to different recruiting platforms. So we are involved with that because we partner with HR&T very closely.
So, okay.
Yeah, so yes, we'll still be part of that. It's under CAO, but
sounds like there's a lot of employees that are exempt.
Yes.
And if they need to recruit or they need to access employees, believe it or not, I can tell you we're having difficulty hiring people. It's just it's the environment, right? Do you all work with exempt and independent elected officials that are trying to
We will gladly work with your office if you need some assistance. You can reach out to Val Hosendorf, who can partner with Tracy Bryant, who heads up the Office of HR&T. And if there's anything that we can do, again, we have limited capacity. We don't have a great resource. We don't have a lot of resources there either. But we can certainly provide some assistance to you if you need some help with that.
I'm sure how to take that answer. Like you said, if we have anything left over, we'll get back to you.
No, it's not that at all.
I'm just saying that people are city employees. Either you're a city employee or you're not a city employee. So,
now, if you reach out, we'll assist you.
All right.
Don't take. There's no hidden meaning there.
No, I'm just chatting, just responding to the way you said that. You said, tell me you got limited resources in your, and I'm not even suggesting this for us. I'm just saying this generally, 4,000 exempt employees. We need people talk about parity, so it would be good if there was parity across the board.
For example, we don't usually hear from the DA's office to help them recruit district attorneys, but we do assist all of the operating departments with recruitment of their exempt employees, even if it's just posting it to smart boards or doing something more intensive. We had a couple of recruiting firms on board, sort of on call, that if somebody wanted to do sort of an executive search, we could actually go to those firms. The departments pay for those activities, but we have resources that are available outside if somebody wanted to use that.
Okay. I'm just, people trying to hire people has been a challenge for everyone now. And you guys do what you do, and you do it well. So the natural inclination is to look at possibilities that currently exist. Okay, well, thank you. We'll continue that conversation on this platform, but I'm sure there will be follow-up conversation.
That including police.
All right, so that appears to be the last questions from members of the committee for this witness. I want to thank you all very much, and thank you all for your creativity. We look forward to working with you on this mobile application platform. This is very creative, and look forward to it. Thank you.
A big kickoff, and invite everybody to the event.
Yeah, let us know, because we want to help you, and we're in a position to get a lot of people out there and participating in this program. So thank you, and thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much.
Testimony. Colleagues, we are halfway through today's witness list, so I suggest that we take a break to give our folks a break, our technology professionals a break, so we can come back at around, let's take a recess until like 2:30. That's okay with everyone. So we're currently in recess. We'll be back on the committee of the whole at 2:30 today.